I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Anchorage Assembly, beginning with a roll call.
Ms. Drummond? Here. Mr. Trainee? Here. Mr. Honeman?
Here.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Honored to be here.
Ms. Osiander?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Starr?
Here.
Mr. Trombley?
Here.
Ms. Johnston? Here. Mr. Flynn? Present. And Mr. Birch?
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
And it is a pleasure to have everybody in the same room. It's really nice.
So we're not getting any echo tonight, huh?
Mr. Flynn, would you lead us in the pledge, please? Mr. Mayor, do you have a report to give us?
No report, Madam Chair.
All right. The only report that I've got is to let everybody know that our clerk is going to be inducted into the Athena Society. So if anybody wants to come to that luncheon, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to, but congratulations to Barbara. Thank you. Mr. Birch, would you like to start us off with committee reports?
Certainly. Actually have several reports. I've spoken to some of you, but in my capacity as a member of the Legislative Committee, I spent a couple of days in Juneau on the 14th and 15th, basically discussing our legislative program with about a dozen different legislators in the House and the Senate. Working closely with our lobbyist there, Wendy Chamberlain, which was, I thought it was very effective, and it seems like they're getting a fair number of our items are advancing. I see we have a couple more on the agenda this evening. Secondly, we had our AMATS Policy Committee meeting. Mr. Flynn and I both attended that as Assembly reps on the AMATS committee and looked at the plan, which is now, what are we calling it now? Let's see. It's instead of yes, it's now the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. So it's anyway, it's moving forward. Then we, I believe it was last week, I participated with our school district and assembly joint work session, a quarterly work session. I found that to be enlightening, and particularly in light of the fact that we have the school district budget up in front of us this evening. And the Commonwealth North Energy Committee, we had a good meeting with Representative Pruitt. Came and gave us a rundown of some of the legislative energy issues. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just add one small item to Mr. Birch's AMATS report. We also established at that meeting a Bike and Ped Advisory Committee, similar to the Freight Advisory Committee and the Air Quality Advisory Committee. One of the things that came up in discussion was whether those committees should report through the Technical Advisory Committee to the Policy Committee or directly to the Policy Committee. The consensus seemed to be that we go through the TAC, and so Mr. Birch and I will be working on an amendment to AMAT's policies and procedures just to clarify that these advisory committees should work through our Technical Advisory Committee as that process moves forward. And if there are any questions or comments about that, happy to entertain them as we work through that process.
I'd like to know the cost of doing that, if that added any cost to projects.
It's in-house staff that assists, and the rest are volunteers. So the committee members are volunteers.
Ms. Johnston?
I really don't have a report, but I think I should mention that I tried not to do too much municipal business on Sunday skiing to Arctic to Indian with our CFO, Lucinda Mahoney, and look how well she survived.
Well, good for both of you. Mr. Trump?
Nothing specific. We had Budget and Finance Committee, and since I'm not chair, Mr. Starr is, I'll let him elaborate on specifics. But I just wanted to thank the administration, particularly Ms. Mahoney and Ms. Frasca, for the information they provided, and it was a very informative meeting. I just wanted to thank them for their efforts.
Mr. Starr?
Yeah, as Mr. Trombley said, last Thursday we had a Budget and Finance Committee meeting which discussed the topic that I brought to the committee, reflecting on perhaps a more equitable distribution of any fund balance or rebate to taxes as we see a difference between collections and empowered. It was very well done. I thought it was a high-level discussion and shows the maturity of not only the committee but the willingness of the administration to kind of tell us the way it is. I've chosen, we don't vote in our committee, but I've chosen not to bring that forward. So it was an hour of time, but surely not an hour of time wasted. On Friday, as I believe everybody was there on speak as the ASD and the school board committee came together primarily with the budget discussion, and I thought that was quite enlightening. And the school board members that were there, I thought engaged, and those that were on our speak also handled themselves very well from an educated perspective. So hopefully we can take action on the school board budget tonight with full education. I did want to take a minute to talk about upcoming first quarter budget amendment schedules, and in talking with the administration, primarily Cheryl Fresca with the budget department and the budget office, would be introduction of the first quarter amendments coming sometime probably around the 7th, 8th for formal introduction at our next meeting on the 10th. And then we'll probably end up taking a gap and not deal with the amendments. However, that gap would mean that the assembly members in this particular case would have to have all of their first quarter amendments as well as the review of the administration amendments ready to go by Friday work session on the 20th for review, and then we will be required to take action on the 24th. So, Madam Chair, I guess I'm proposing a introduction of the administration proposal for work session or for first quarter budget adjustments, a work session on the 20th, and then take final action on the 24th to make the tax bills. So if there's any comments on that, surely I'd like to entertain them. And then just between now and then take some guidance from you or other assembly members on how you would like the committee to weigh in.
With that process, there's basically one work session. So we'd have some time for the administration to present, and then typically we want to see all of our amendments so we can discuss them too. So if we go with that, when would you like assembly members' amendments presented? Do you want them to go to your committee or just have them before the work session so the administration can see them too?
Well, perhaps both. My advice, which we did last year, and I thought it worked very well, was the burden of the presentation of the amendment from the individual assembly members would take place on that Friday. However, we would spend Thursday sort of organizing duplicates and maybe some committee work, not squelching or judging those amendments, but packaging them, I think, for the work session on Friday. So I would launch a committee meeting on the 19th and then work session on the 20th and then action on the 24th.
Okay, so then we'd have to have our amendments ready by the 18th, if that works for people. I think that's the way we'll go, all right? And then we'll have a work session on the 20th from 11 to 1. Is that same? That's a 2-hour work session. Everybody okay with that? All right, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Starr. Mr. Hall?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to do an update on Fur Ronde. I attended their board meeting last week, and they had preliminary numbers, all of which were up over the previous year. They continue to rise each and every year. Community had an incredibly good time. It's still hard for me to believe that you can get over 700 people to show up real early on a Saturday morning for a frostbite foot race, but I understand 745 people showed up for that event. Running of the reindeer was over 2,400 this year, and participation in all the events were over what we had last year. So it just gets more successful each and every year.
Mr. Hall, my daughter ran in that race and said it was wonderful. Ms. Gray-Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank Mr. Raskin for the courtesy of sending the assembly members a copy of the ASD audit on purchasing. Of course, we have no jurisdiction over their audits, but I have to also say that I agree with Mr. Raskin's opinion that the audit exemplifies the fact that the municipality and the school district needs to work together to meet the needs of both entities so that we can provide audit services in a cost-efficient manner. So thank you, Mr. Raskin. And also at our joint meeting on Friday, I think it was, I invited the chair, the audit committee chair of the school district, to meet with me and the municipal audit committee for further discussion on this subject. I think it would be really great dialogue. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the fact that Ms. Drummond and I attended the NLC congressional meeting, annual meeting, last week, and we had the opportunity to meet with our D.C. lobbyists, C.J. Zane and Don Norden, and it was a really, really great meeting. We had a meeting scheduled with Senator Murkowski, but Ms. Drummond and I couldn't make it because our plane was leaving at the same time, and of course Congressman Young was here in Anchorage and not in D.C., but we were fortunate to have met with Senator Begich, and it was really great because it was right after he successfully was instrumental in the transportation bill passing, which I'm sure everybody has the particulars on by now. We had a really great conference, and I personally had the opportunity to be present at the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee, which I sit on behalf of NLC. It was a successful meeting, and we talked about our 2012 issue priorities. We're going to have another meeting in July in Nashville. We also had a presentation from two highly ranked representatives from the EPA, and they talked about the EPA's planning approach for municipal stormwater and wastewater systems and how governments can implement this approach. And I like to pass out a full summary of what we discussed in our Energy Committee meeting and what we plan on discussing in the upcoming months through the end of this year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank you for that, Ms. Gray-Jackson. The stormwater standards have been a concern because of the potential real increased costs for local government. So I'm looking forward to reading this and getting more information. And were the committee aware of that, the cost impacts for local government?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe at the last meeting, when I gave a report on my NLC meeting, I talked about the fact that because of NLC's efforts, the EPA has made an agreement to work with municipalities to help them through this difficult time. I believe I gave that report at one of my meetings probably last year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Honeman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had the Public Safety Committee meeting on Wednesday the 14th at the Animal Care and Control Facilities Conference Room, and I would thank the Health Department and DeEtte, I believe her name was, Deanne Fetko. She actually was there at us in representation for the meeting. She's the actual contract administrator for that facility. And at the conclusion of the meeting, we had a tour of the facility, which I've not been as deep into the facility as ever, and working for the city for 25 years now. So it was really good information, good tour, and it illustrated the concerns or the needs for a request to rebuild, remodel a portion of the facility, which you'll see a 9B3, which is a resolution supporting an appropriation request to do just that. The highlights of that meeting, just to let you know, is we were concerned, or we had a presentation by the Rum Runners owners. They have basically changed management course. They've actually presented a fairly thick manual that we're looking at in draft. I know a copy went to the police department. Chief Hebby was there, and we've got a copy they're going to go through. They have some pretty detailed steps and their organizational structure they're trying to do much better. I suspect we'll be seeing something on their reapplication for conditional use on the vault, that lower ground bar, and as well as the fire department reported that, the fire marshal reported that they are in compliance with their portion and they're nearing completion on their permitted rebuild. So they're eager to make sure they do things right. They're wanting to come back and make sure we're aware of it ahead of time. So it was a pretty good presentation. I do have the draft we can look and review. If you'd request, I certainly have a copy to get to you. There was another presentation on Government Hill. I'll get with Mr. Flynn, reference one of two liquor stores. The Government Hill Community Council is concerned that the liquor license was approved and renewed without some conditions on their conditional use. And there's some concern that they're operating nearly just across the street from a store that has some pretty good conditions stipulated, and as a result, they've seen some concerns. There was another presentation on off-leash dog park areas, and I can share with you that There's some documents that came in after another individual couldn't make it to the meeting. But the tenor of that is, and just a reminder to the public, that we do have, is it 4 off-leash dog parks, 5 off-leash dog parks in the city. And there's a requirement that when you get out of your car and when you go back to the car, the dogs are supposed to be on leash. And then if you're on the bike trails, they're multi-use trails for bicyclists, joggers, the like. And that bicyclists in particular are very concerned that some of the dogs are being allowed to run off leash on and off the trails connected to the parks. And then in other cases, just on the trails, and that there's some high risk to people of injuries. The dog owners seem to get real agitated if you run into their dogs with the bike, and the bike owners get really agitated if they get flipped over and sustain injuries or crash their bikes. So we had that, and then again, the good tour of the facility, which again 9B3 will highlight. So the next scheduled meeting is at City Hall, noon on April 11th.
Right. Mr. Flynn has a question for you, sir.
Actually, I saw Chief Mew in the audience a few minutes ago, and at the mention of rum runners, I was wondering if...
He's out there, Pat.
Oh, okay, I'll wait till he comes back. Thanks.
All right.
I'll follow up.
Mr. Trainee?
In the interest of time, nothing, ma'am.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too attended the National League of Cities Congressional Conference with Ms. Gray Jackson, and I was very pleased to have been to have been invited to be at the Noise Legislative Forum. This is a group of council people from around the country who are members of communities that are impacted by airports. And it's totally appropriate because the Anchorage International Airport is beginning its Part 150 noise study, something which is done, I believe, about every decade, that looks at the noise contours around the airport. And they had a meeting in February, which I attended. There were at least 80 people there from West Anchorage who were invited to host noise monitors in their homes and that sort of thing. So I'm learning and bringing information back from NLC that will help our community cooperate and live with our airport in our midst. In addition, I've been exploring the issue of food access and child hunger, and attended at least one workshop to that effect. The most interesting speaker at that one was the Executive Director of Food Services for the New Haven Public Schools. And I'd love to give you more details on that, but we don't have time to go into it. And I'm also very pleased to announce that Anchorage, Alaska, has been selected by the National League of Cities Institute for Youth Education and Families to participate in the city's Combating Hunger Through After-School Meals program in Chicago in late May. I hope to be attending along with Ms. Engel, if she can, and forget who the third person was who was to be attending, but the National League of Cities is paying for this training session, and it will make Anchorage eligible for further grants and assistance in providing meals to kids in the after-school program. Thank you.
Is the school district involved with that?
Yes, I'm sorry. That's who would be going. Is the new director of food services, whose name I forget right now because it was Brent Rock for so many years.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief Mew, there was a question for you, if you wouldn't mind. Mr. Flynn, Mr. Chief is here. Do you want to ask your question now?
I asked him offline, and
oh, you're okay.
Just that there is some grand jury activity about rum runners, but we won't hear about it for another week. So
we'll talk about it later.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. With that, the addendum and one late on the table item is before us.
Move to incorporate.
If there's no, is there any objection to incorporation? Seeing none, then those items are incorporated in the agenda, and I will read them into the record. 9A4 will be AR 91. It's a resolution thanking Prudential Jack White Vista Realty, the Alaska Salvation Army, and the UAA TRIO program for their support and partnership with the Alaska Prudential Youth Leadership Institute Youth Leadership Program, and recognizing the 2012 Alaska Points of Light graduates and the Spirit of Community Distinguished finalist. Also, Resolution 9A5 will be AR 2012-93. It's a resolution of the Assembly recognizing and thanking Trevor Storrs for his community leadership and 9 years of service as the Executive Director of the Alaska AIDS Assistance Association. 9B3 will be AR 92. It's a resolution of the Assembly confirming local support and priority for capital funding in the amount of $300,000 to add a veterinary surgical spray and neuter facility to the Anchorage Animal Control Care and Control Center. 9C2 will be AM 204. It's a recommendation of award to BC Excavating LLC for the Asplund Wastewater Treatment Facility Utilidor upgrade in the amount of $1,657,605.90. In the D section of our agenda, 9D14, there'll be added AM 205, which is a sole source purchase of professional consulting services with Ray Pierce for Municipality of Anchorage ML&P to the tune of $85,000. And then for introduction, there's an item 9F8, which will be AO 38. It's an ordinance of the Assembly amending Anchorage Municipal Code Section 12.15.025 in keeping with state law to allow municipal disaster tax relief for wind, avalanche, earthquake, and flood, in addition to fire, and it's retroactive to January 1st, 2012, and that's set for a public hearing on 4/10 of 12, which actually, is that our next meeting? I think it is. How did time go so fast? All right. With that, the amended agenda is before us.
Approve.
All right. That item then is before us, and I'll go down and see what people would like to pull. Ms. Drummond, why don't I start at your end? Anything you'd like to discuss?
Yes, ma'am. 9A5 for reading.
9A5, the late on the table
late
item.
on the table item, yes, ma'am.
All righty.
I got a few comments.
Anything else?
Not at this time, thank you.
Mr. Traney?
Want to pull 9B3 on the addendum to the agenda?
9B3.
Three. And I asked Adam on 9F8 if we could get an SCE. And given when they're saying we should have a public hearing, we really needed to have that SCE ahead of us at the time.
Yeah, we do have a requirement for that. Thank you.
That's all, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Honeman?
No items, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
No, thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Hall?
Yes, Madam Chair. 9A1 and 9D4.
That was Delta 4?
Delta 4.
All right. Mr. Starr?
No items.
Mr. Trombley?
9 Echo 5.
9 Echo 5. All right. Ms. Johnston?
9D9.
9 Delta 9? Is that
Yes.
what you said? All right. Mr. Flynn?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 9 Alpha 3 for reading and presentation, please.
All right. Anything else, sir?
That's all.
Mr. Birch?
Yes, see, I don't, is the Seawolf debate program, are those folks here this evening? Nope, okay. I think the other item that we had identified has been pulled. Thank you.
So that was you didn't want to pull?
No.
Okay.
I don't
So
think we
nothing
need-
from you, sir? tonight.
Pardon me?
So you're not pulling anything tonight?
No.
Okay, very good. Mr. Hall?
I assume that we would want to pull 9A5.
It was pulled already.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. Mr. Drummond did it.
Okay.
Administration, anything?
Points of light?
No? All right. Let me recap those to make sure we've got them all. A1, A3, A5. Delta 4, Delta 9, and, Bravo 3. And then moving on, E5. All right? So, lest those items, the consent agenda is before you. Please vote.
Do we get 9A4 pulled?
No, we did not get 9A4 pulled.
Understand there's someone here?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, is there objection? We're also going to add 9A4,
Alpha
excuse
4.
me, Alpha 4. And now the voting had started. Should I reset or just continue? All right. Finish voting, please. Only got half of you.
What if we don't want to?
Very good. All right, the rest of the agenda passes unanimously. And I'm trying to scan it to see if we had any appointees. Mr. Vacalis, I don't think we did.
Yes, we did.
Oh, Mr. Carlson's here. We do have an appointee. If we just appointed you to a board or commission, could you come forward so we can thank you? And there may be somebody else besides you, sir.
Yep.
Is that
Altamani,
Mr. Tamang? There he is.
Yeah.
Sarah Clampett.
Two familiar faces.
I guess you gave me.
Could you introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be doing?
Yes, my name is Al Timani, Sr., and I've been elected by the mayor's office and hope he will approve it to serve on the Budget Advisory Commission.
Thank you.
If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those.
Thank you. And thank you for your many years of service to the city. No questions.
Okay, all right. My name is Ted Carlson, and I've been appointed to the Ethics Board, and I just want to say that I appreciate the confidence that Mayor Sullivan and you Assembly members have placed in me, and I will do my utmost to fulfill that.
Thank you. Now we do have questions for you, sir.
Oh.
Mr. Honeman.
Just a comment. I know, Captain, that you were responsible for hiring me at the Anchorage Police Department, and of course you've served up in this body as well in the past. So thanks for your many years of service to the city, and you're continuing to do so. So my hat's off to you.
Thank you.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, Mr. Carlson. It's very nice to see you here again. As the chair of the Ethics Committee of the Assembly, it was my pleasure to review your very lengthy resume and very detailed resume, and I hope everybody noticed that Mr. Carlson included a copy of his birth certificate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ted, it's always nice to see you. I think you're a wonderful person, and I'm so glad to see that you're going to be serving on the Ethics Committee, the Ethics Board. And Ted's one of my 42 Assembly members that I work with. I love saying that. And I'll tell you, last night when I was reading my agenda, I thought I was going to never read your application. But it was very, very helpful, and you should be proud. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ted.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. I'm Sarah Clampett, and I've been appointed to the Anchorage Animal Care and Control Advisory Board, and I'm a long-term animal advocate here in this community and throughout the state, and look forward to being of service there.
We really appreciate your service. Thank you very much for being willing to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have we got everybody? I think so.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Honeman?
I recognize, I believe, some high school students here. I don't know if it'd be appropriate for them to come up and introduce themselves.
Well, we've got a fair number of
Okay, very
recognitions,
good.
and a lot of them come for their government class and talk
Very
to us during the break. So
Very
I
good.
think we'll do it that way, if you don't mind. All right. The first item before us then is 9A1. This is AR 82. It's a resolution of the Assembly recognizing and honoring Mr. Albert Circosta for rescuing a citizen from distress with kiteboarding in Turnagain Arm. There's a motion on the floor, and it's seconded by Mr. Starr. Is there objection to approval of this? Seeing no objection, it's approved unanimously. Could you come up to the mic, sir? Who's reading?
I'm reading.
Okay.
Whereas on the evening of October 24th, 2011, Mr. Albert Sarcosta was kiteboarding with a friend in Turnagain Arm near Carr-Godstein Park. Albert noticed a kiteboarder, Mr. Brian Marr, struggling and in serious trouble about a mile offshore. And whereas Albert set after the distressed kiteboarder, and after 15 minutes of searching, Albert found the down kiteboarder 1.5 miles from the shore. And whereas Albert instructed Mr. Marr to release his board so that he could tow him back to shore. After freeing himself from his entangled lines, Mr. Marr swam away from his gear and toward Albert. And whereas Albert instructed Mr. Marr to hold on to his harness and lay flat. In the dark, cold, windy conditions, Albert flew his kite while pulling Mr. Marr and himself back to the beach, where he was met and assisted by off-duty Fire Captain Mark Steffens. And whereas Captain Steffens, who happened to observe this act of heroism, is also a kiteboarder, he is familiar with the volatile conditions of Turnagain Arm. Captain Steffens is convinced that Albert Sarcosta's selfless act of bravery saved Mr. Marr's life. If not for Albert's quick thinking and courage, Brian Marr would have drowned. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Anchorage Assembly recognizes and honors Mr. Albert Sarcosta for his exceptional valor and selfless life-saving efforts in assisting a citizen in distress in Turnagain Arm, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly on this day.
Before they let me speak, I'm going to speak. Okay? Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to introduce Captain Mark Stevens. He's the gentleman on the right, and this is Senior Captain Tony Schwam. Both are kiteboarders and participate in that crazy sport. Mr. Mars wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mr. Sarcosta, and I wanted to present him with the Fire Chief's commendation on behalf of his efforts that day. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bravo.
Oh, well. Thank you all very much for the recognition. I don't have a lot to say other than thank you. You know, a lot of people say it's a crazy sport, and they see us out there. I know there's a real stigma against the Arm and being in the Arm, as there should be. It's dangerous conditions if not taken appropriately. But I would like to say that it can be a safe sport. It can be it can be performed without a lot of danger to life and limb, as many people don't agree with or don't know. But, you know, we get out there and we usually know what we're doing. What happened in a situation like this is somebody got out there that didn't know the conditions at hand and didn't know what they were up against and found themselves almost suffering for it. And but I would like to say, you know, it's not as crazy as people think. You really have a lot of tools to get yourself out of a situation if you ever get into one. And so give it a try. There's lots of good instructors. It's actually really fun to do. So thank you. And really, mostly, it was dark that night. By the time we got him hitched up, we really couldn't see much. But what I did see was the lights of a fire truck. That's what I went to. And we've had a few incidences out there where the firemen have been there, and so I'd like to thank the firemen most of all.
Thank you. We do have a question for you, though. Mr. Honeman, you have a question?
Do you know if Mr. Marr's still kiteboarding? Have you been out there and giving him?
He is. I don't know if he's taken more instruction or not, but he's a good guy. He really just didn't know the elements. Right now, he owns a sailboat, and he's sailing around the world, so he can't be here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, thank you for being there, your quick action, and good on you for responding quickly, especially given the conditions. So thank you.
Great story. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.
The next item before us is 9A3. This is AR 89. It's a resolution recognizing April 2012 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and encouraging the residents of Anchorage to support community efforts to raise awareness and work together to eliminate sexual assault crimes in our community.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Any objection? Seeing none, that passes unanimously.
Whereas Governor Parnell has identified 3 keys to stop the epidemic of domestic violence and sexual assault in Alaska. First, we'll beef up law enforcement and force tougher prosecution. Second, we will protect survivors and help them heal. Third, we will focus on prevention and education. And whereas in 2009, Governor Parnell pledged his administration to take every step necessary to stop the epidemic of domestic violence and sexual assault in Alaska, and since that pledge, he has signed into law the following legislation. HB 127, related to the sexual exploitation of children, domestic violence, and stalking. Senate Bill 222, sentencing and crimes involving sexual assault and domestic violence. House Bill 324, revising bail laws to reflect defendants accused of serious crimes such as felony sexual assault are a danger to the community and to the victims. SB 110, procedures for DNA retention in murder and sexual assault cases. And whereas the Alaska Network on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault is a nonprofit statewide network, legal advocacy project, and pro bono program linking together individuals and community-based service providers to assist victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. And whereas ANVSA, in its 2010 Alaska Summary of Core Victims Services, reports that 18 out of 18, 100%, of identified domestic violence programs in Alaska participated in the 2010 National Census of Domestic Violence Services, which recorded services provided during the 24-hour survey period. Together, these Alaska programs served 467 victims in one day, providing 307 victims with refuge in emergency shelters or transitional housing, 160 victims with non-residential assistance and services, including counseling, legal advocacy, and children's support groups, 80 hotline callers with support, information, safety planning, and resources, and 353 individuals with education and prevention and education training. And whereas the State of Alaska, Department of Public Safety, Council on Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault, in its 2011 year in review reports these statistics. Over $10.8 million to community-based nonprofit programs to provide shelter, safe shelter, advocacy, and support to victims, and community education and awareness to reduce tolerance for these crimes. 95,413 nights of safe shelter provided for 2,240 adults, 1,594 children. Over 200 staff members kept programs open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to ensure a safe refuge and help their communities develop strategies for creating peace. 3,533 people volunteered 95,698 hours, 58% more people, and 75% more hours than 2010. And whereas, along with Alaska Legal Services Corporation, the Alaska Native Justice Center provides advocacy and attorney representation for Native and non-Native victims of sexual assault and domestic violence. And whereas, at noon on March 29, 2012, Governor Parnell will lead nonprofits, legislators, stakeholders, and community members in a Choose Respect March from the steps of the Capitol building in Juneau and proclaim April 2012 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Alaska. And whereas, at noon on March 29, 2012, Anchorage residents will join more than 100 communities across Alaska by holding a local Choose Respect March, gathering at Delaney Park Strip, 9th and F Street, and marching to Town Square Park to promote cultural shift toward honor and respect for all Alaskans and intolerance of domestic violence and sexual assault. And whereas the Abused Women's Aid and Crisis Shelter, Standing Together Against Rape, the Alaska Legal Services Corporation, and the Alaska Native Justice Center support the Choose Respect March and these other events scheduled in April for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, including on April 10th, Take Back the Night Speak Out at Taproot in Anchorage from 6 to 8 p.m. On April 27th, Walk a Mile in Her Shoes fundraiser at University Mall in Anchorage at noon. And also on April 27th, Uncorked Wine Tasting fundraiser at the Alaska Center for the Performing Arts at 7 p.m. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Municipal Assembly honors the volunteers, staff, stakeholders, nonprofits, Alaska Native organizations, pro bono legal advocacy programs, lawmakers, community members, and government officials who are networking to meet the challenges of sexual assault and domestic violence, and recognizes April 2012 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Anchorage residents and visitors are encouraged to choose respect and step up to the challenge of stopping the crimes of sexual assault in our community. Passed and approved by Anchorage Assembly the 27th day of March, 2012.
All right, thank you very much. Identify yourself and just say a few words.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daniela Cortez. I'm a direct services advocate at STAR. We would like to thank the Assembly and the City for recognizing April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's an important month. Some of the events that we have planned were mentioned in this proclamation, but obviously I'd like to plug, we have lots more. So staralaska.org is where you would go to find out about those. But we look forward to seeing you all at the Governor's March on Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item before us is 9, whoops, I just lost my paper here, on the addendum, 9A4. There it is. And I would like to ask the body if you would mind combining it with a speaker who's Mr. Bassett is scheduled to be our speaker in non-agenda at 6, and he's here. And I thought maybe he'd like to go early if we combine the two, do the presentation and the resolution.
That'd be great, Madam Chair. I'm actually keeping an eye out for the 3 youth that were going to speak.
All right. Well, let's do the resolution first and then allow you to speak. Is that all right?
Okay.
Does the body object to that?
The young people were going to actually do the talking. They're busy people, and I'm just keeping they were to be here.
Oh, they're not here yet?
They were going to be here at 4.
Madam Chair.
Okay, so you're not quite ready.
That's probably accurate.
All right, then we'll combine these and defer them just a little bit until the youth get here. Is that all right with the body?
Perfect.
All right. Thank you. Then we're just going to skip from A4 into A5, which is the late on the table item. So this is AR 93. It's a resolution recognizing and thanking Trevor Storrs for his community leadership and 9 years of service as Executive Director of the Alaska AIDS Assistance Association.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to approval? Seeing none, that's approved unanimously. Mr. Storrs, are you here? Oh, there you are. I think the glasses threw me.
Whereas the Alaskan AIDS Assistance Association, now known as 4As, was established in 1985 as the first organization in Alaska dedicated to responding to the needs of our community for services to individuals living with HIV and AIDS and their families, and eliminating the transmission of HIV and its stigma. And whereas through the leadership of Trevor Storrs as Executive Director for over 9 years, 4As continues to protect and improve the quality of life for those living with HIV/AIDS through compassion, respect, innovation, collaboration, and competency, the core values that guide the Board of Directors, staff, and volunteers. Whereas on February 26, 2011, 4As celebrated its 25th anniversary and currently provides direct services to over 305 persons living with HIV/AIDS and their families, and prevention services statewide to well over 30,000 persons annually. And whereas Trevor Storrs has truly made a positive difference in our community, and with his leadership, 4As is at the forefront of HIV prevention in Alaska, leading the battle to eliminate new infections and turning the page to the future of HIV prevention with increasing optimism for a healthy Alaska. And whereas Trevor Storrs further serves our community as co-chair of the Anchorage Coalition on Homelessness, whose mission it is to provide a continuum of support to prevent homelessness and connect the homeless to safe, secure, and affordable housing. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly honors and recognizes Trevor Storrs for his outstanding service as the Executive Director of 4As for more than 9 years and welcomes his voice on issues of important community dialogue within Alaska, passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly on this day.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you all know me well enough that I'll take this moment to at least speak. It's always been a great honor, and it's greater than just serving the 4As. It's been an honor to be a part of this community, being here for 15 years and having the opportunity to be part of an amazing team at the Alaskan AIDS Assistance Association, and taking that team not just inside the building, but reaching outside. There's many people in this room that I've worked with on so many issues, and we have made great strides in this community. And I really appreciate everything that every one of you have done to help us, whether it's around HIV, around homelessness, and even as we deal with equality. And just want to really thank you all. This is a fabulous community. I'm very proud to be able to be a servant to it. And do know I'm not going far. I'm just transferring my chair, and I'll be continuing to serve Anchorage, but I have a great opportunity to serve our great state now in my new role. So thank you all, and I look forward to working with you. And thank you to my team. I love you all. Thank you. Have a good night.
Mr. Honeman has a question.
Just wanted to say thank you for all your work, not only with 4A's, but also with Project Homeless Connect. I know this past fall we were out doing surveys of the homeless camps real bright early in the morning before the sun had been raised. And you're just the trooper. You've been there with Carlick Manor. You've just been all around with making our community better and safer, and I appreciate all your works. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you again, Trevor. But what's your new role? We were trying to figure it out all afternoon.
Well, I'm still the jack of all trades, but the official title will be the Executive Director of the Alaska Children's Trust.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'm looking at you. I think thumbs up. We're ready to go? Okay. All right. The next item before us is 9A4. This is AR 91. It's a resolution of the Assembly thanking Prudential Jack White Vista Realty, the Alaska Salvation Army, and the UAA TRIO program for their support and partnership with the Alaska Prudential Youth Leadership Institute Youth Leadership Program, and recognizing the 2012 Points of Light graduates and the Spirit of Community distinguished finalist.
Move to approve.
Discussion? Objection? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Could people being recognized come up to the mic?
And there's one for everybody.
Go ahead.
Whereas the Prudential Spirit of Community Awards program was created in 1985 by Prudential Financial Incorporated in partnership with the National Association of Secondary School Principals and is the largest U.S. youth recognition program based exclusively on volunteer community service. And whereas one of the goals of the program is to honor middle level and high school students for outstanding service to others at the local, state, and national level. And whereas the 15th Annual Alaska Points of Light Youth Leadership Institute was sponsored as part of the Prudential National Spirit of Community Initiative in Alaska over spring break, March 12 through 16 of 2012, at the Anchorage Salvation Army Corps Community Center. And whereas 14 outstanding youth leaders in volunteer service participated in a 40-hour community leadership training that included 5 days of skill development and instruction in self and community assessment, diversity, goal setting, team building, project planning, and decision-making, hands-on field exercises, the community service project, and these participants were honored as Alaska's 2012 Points of Light Youth Leadership Institute graduates. And I will read them off as best I can, as we have a very diverse community, Madam Chair. Eileen Abam from West Anchorage High School, grade 11. Estrada Bernard III from the Frontier Charter School, grade 11. Zena Card from the Family Partnership Charter School, grade 9. Carlos Gonzalez, West Anchorage High School, grade 10. Go Eagles. Courtney Christine Guthrie, East Anchorage High School, grade 9. Kinsey Holbrook, grade 11. Juan S. Orozco, West Anchorage High School, grade 10. Joshua Reed, West Anchorage High School, grade 10. Caleb Reed, Romick Middle School, grade 8. Kadeen Sanford, East Anchorage High School, grade 11. Noel Shepard Walunga, Diamond High School, grade 11. Emily Timmons, Family Partnership Charter School, grade 9. Brandon Williams, grade 10. And Kazoa Bang, East Anchorage High School, grade 11. And whereas West Anchorage High School senior Regan Fitzgerald collected money to provide more than 200 diapers and pacifiers from more than 100 toys for children living at the Clare House, a temporary shelter for abused women and their children, and plans to continue raising funds and awareness to support this project. And whereas for her efforts, Regan Fitzgerald will also receive a bronze medallion as a 2012 Spirit of Community Award Distinguished Finalist for Alaska. And whereas the Anchorage Municipal Assembly joins in celebrating these distinguished Anchorage students, especially all the West High ones, who demonstrate an unwavering commitment to improving the quality of life for all residents and serve as harbingers of a bright future within the municipality of Anchorage. Now, therefore, the Anchorage Assembly congratulates Alaska's 2012 Prudential Spirit of Community Award recipient and graduates of Alaska's 2012 Points of Light Youth Leadership Institute and applauds Prudential Jack White Vista Realty, Alaska Salvation Army, and the UAA TRIO program for their support of Anchorage youth leadership and student volunteerism. Passed and approved by the Anchorage Assembly this 27th day of March, 2012.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, Assembly members, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to turn the mic shortly over to one of our graduates, Estrada Bernard III. Before I do that, just say that we are in our 15th year of training young people, and we probably had our finest class over spring break at the Salvation Army. And I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Ryan, who is with Salvation Army. He's going to say a few words.
Just wanted to thank Bo. I know he's a humble man, but for his 15 years of providing this great leadership, I had the opportunity to see the young men and women grow from separate to being together as a leader, and for him, his willingness and leadership to continue this program for many years. And Salvation Army looks forward to the partnership and being able to continue this for the community.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Bo, first of all, for running the program. He did a fantastic job, and I and all of my peers really enjoyed it. Leadership is defined by Merriam-Webster's dictionary as the capacity to lead. We are all capable of leadership, yet many of us have not realized this potential. At Points of Light Youth Leadership Institute, we were taught how to harness this inner potential. And so over spring break, me and 13 of my peers, we went to this, and it was our full-time job from 9 to 5, so it was a long 8 hours, but it was a really good opportunity. We learned a lot about leadership. We learned what it was really about. It's not about stepping forward and commanding everyone with your presence. It's about sort of stepping back and incorporating the entire group and making sure that your goals are completed and within time and budget. Some of us, like me, were a little bit too overpowering and willing to speak our minds at first, so we learned to kind of step back and incorporate others. And so it also prepared us for a lifetime of service. We learned about planning and implementing community service, and we had the opportunity to go to the Boys and Girls Club of Mountain View and volunteer there for an hour and just kind of spend time with the kids. And it was an excellent opportunity, and I'm sure that our class is going to go really far and do great things in their community and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Juan Sebastian, and I would like to talk about my experience I had over PILI. It's a very interesting program because it guides you to become a better person in your life and a better leader. Therefore, I recommend this program to young people and students to take the opportunity and time of PILI. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Honeman has a question or comment?
Mr. Bassett? Sorry. I want to commend you for yet another. I believe I was there at the very first PILI out at the camp out in Birchwood, and I popped back in from occasion, and that's been wonderful. So I commend you. The only question I have is I'm seeing Bartlett High missing here somewhere. Bartlett? I don't know if that was just somebody who didn't apply or was in coaxed.
These gentlemen came, some self-initiated, EJ saw it in the South Anchorage High School Bulletin. Sebastian came through the UAA TRIO program, which is both Upward Bound and Educational Talent Search at Bartlett East and West. And what the Assembly members can do is help do outreach. We have 25,000 eligible 8th to 12th graders that could have attended, and we attracted 12. So we need you to reach out in the community and pass the word that leadership is important, service to the community is important, and next spring break we'll have 30 there in attendance.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Trombley?
I generally don't like to use these times for flattery, but I have to say, in a time when we see youth who at times don't care and come across as lazy, I want to say that both of you came across very professional and very confident. I know it's difficult to speak publicly, but you did a very good job. and it's a testament to who you are as in your character. And I suggest that you guys continue down the road that you are, and you'll definitely be very successful in life.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Now, if you look at the agenda, Mr. Bassett was also going to speak to us tonight about the Alaska Points of Light Youth Leadership graduates. So, Ms. Bassett, did you want to say anything further?
Boy, that's good. You don't ever want to invite me to cross more.
Mr. Bassett, we thank you very much. I mean, the comments, I think, are from all of us. You've long standing in the community, and you've been doing this just excellently for a long time. Thank you. All right. With that, we are moving into the B section of our agenda, and there's 9B3. This is AR 92. It's a resolution of the Assembly confirming local support and priority for capital funding in the amount of $300,000 to add a veterinary surgical spay and neuter facility to the Anchorage
Move to
Animal.
approve, Madam.
Second.
Is there discussion?
Debbie, what I want to see on this is I'd like us to ask the Animal Control Advisory Board to come up with a change to Title 17 that makes spade and neuter mandatory before we let these animals out of that facility. It's fine to have this, but we've got to have something written into law that before the animals are adopted out, they're spayed and neutered. Otherwise, all we're doing is continuing to let them breed, and we've got a continual problem in the amount of pets that are out there. So if we could ask the Animal Control Advisory Board to come back to us with a change to Title 17 relative to, once this gets approved, the mechanism to put it into law, to present it to us, it would help.
Ms. Engel,
Or I will do it for you, man. It's your choice.
could you pass that request on to Ms. Fetko? Ms. Engel?
Thank you. I will.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Anything else, Dick?
Nothing else, Madam.
All right. Is there any other conversation or discussion on this matter? Oh, Mr. Starr, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Honeman, I see there's a couple suggestions that the funding improvements won't take place until the 13 and 14 calendar years in this document here based on the grant request. Where's the pressure on the program, and why wasn't it spoken to on our original legislative packet? Not that I'm against it. I just, when we kind of Johnny-come-lately to the program, is there a sense of emergency, or is it just a timeliness that you're asking for it now when they don't even seem to plan for it until 13 and 14?
So I believe, Mr. Starr, that it's, and I could be incorrect on it, but I believe it's in our legislative packet that went forth this year. So I was under the understanding that it was in for the 2012 packet.
I didn't see it, so I didn't know how that was going to be played out. But Ms. Engel, if we get the money, are we prepared from a staffing perspective and a contracted agency to kind of do something with it and expand our staff, or what do you think would be the best approach on getting money from Juneau?
Through the chair, Mr. Starr, the reason this has become a concern for animal care and control, although in all the priorities of the municipality, perhaps not the top concern, a lower concern, is because we lost the ability a few years ago to be able to contract with veterinarians to send animals out and have them spayed and neutered before adoption. And that created our inability to require spay and neutering prior to adoption. And so the veterinary community had indicated that they really would do this, but only if we had a facility at the shelter. And so this became a priority of the Animal Control Advisory Board. It's a one-sentence priority in the overall legislative packet. And like I said, certainly from Animal Care and Control's perspective and the Advisory Board, I do believe that they have been working on this for many years. But I can't say that from the administration's perspective it's a high priority.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Flynn?
Yeah, just to confirm, Mr. Birch and I were checking our legislative packet down here. It is a one-liner on page 14 but we didn't have any backup material with it, so this perhaps would help flesh that out.
Thank you. Mr. Drummond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Engel, for the explanation. So, in other words, the veterinarians in this community are saying that if there is a facility provided, they will volunteer to come in and do the spay and neuter, because it's simpler, of course, to come to a facility to do it than to take the animals to their clinics.
Through the chair, Ms. Drummond, they won't volunteer, but we do have funding available for a contract. The reason they don't want to take the animals to their clinics is because they run the risk of getting disease and kennel cough and other things, because animals housed at animal control may be more at risk of things. So they don't want to bring it to their private businesses. So that's how this became an issue. A few years ago. We are able to do a few cat spay and neuters at the clinic, but there's a charge for the spay and neuter, so this would fund that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Honeman?
And just to echo that, Ms. Ingles correct. That they're doing cats and they're able to do cats, but dogs are a greater expense. I believe a cat spay, according to the numbers that were giving estimate, was less than $100, if I'm not mistaken. And then a dog could be several $100s if you did it at a private facility. So having the facility in-house, and it's not that they're expanding, they're just simply using space that's already there, renovating it, and using it for a different purpose.
Seeing no further discussion, please vote. That item passes unanimously. The next item before us is 9 Delta 4. This is the Women's Commission appointment of Jessica Taylor, Gillian DeZoto, and Garen Tarr.
Move approval.
Mr. Hall.
Yes, Madam Chair. I was asked by administration to pull this item. We need to divide the question, remove Jessica Taylor from it, and confirm Gillian DeSoto and Duran Tarr.
All right. Is there a second to the move to divide the question? Is there objection to dividing the question? Seeing no objection, the question is divided with Ms. Taylor in one. So at this point, I'm going to ask then if you'd like to vote on the Ms. Taylor. Mr. Traney?
Ma'am, why is the administration asking to have this one person removed? I know they brought it forward to us. Is there a problem, or they just can't do it?
Mr. Michaelis or Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, we have been unable to contact Ms. Taylor in some time, emails, phones, and she'd originally applied. We'd moved her nomination forward, but we want to make sure that she's still interested because, again, we've been out of contact for some time with her.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
You bet.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. So I need a motion for Ms. Taylor.
We can postpone indefinitely.
Well, I just need something.
I'll move it.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to postpone indefinitely, and it was a second by Mr. Traney.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, you made the motion?
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to put it all on the board. Makes it simpler. Please vote on postponing that indefinitely. And that passed unanimously. Ms. Taylor is postponed indefinitely. I need a motion for the other two.
Move to approve.
All right. Is there discussion? Seeing none, please vote. On the other two, that was approved 10-1. The next item before us then is 9 Delta 9. This is AM 189. It's a sole source commercial lease agreement with Wendy Chamberlain for office space lease in Juneau for ML&P for $18,000.
You pulled it, didn't you, Ernie?
Move to approve.
All right. And Mr. Birch seconded. Discussion, Ms. Johnson?
Is Mr. Posey here?
I
apologize to the administration. I was going to put this in an email form, and I didn't. And there he is. So, Mr. Posey, I think we've had this discussion before about this office space, and I'm just how many times do you or someone from LMLMP go down during the session?
2 to 3 times through the chair, Ms. Johnson. And at other times, other city folks use it. That's all.
And I've sat in it. So, but I've just always been a little bit concerned about the expense, wondering if it's really necessary. I'm sure it does help our lobbyists to not have all of us sitting in her conference room the whole time. But I just wanted to, I'm not quite sure if it's a legitimate expense, and I wanted to raise the point, since we talk about it every year.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Flynn?
Just a comment, Madam Chair. This is, if you look at the dates, the previous 2 leases and then this one, this is the 3rd time that we're being asked to approve a lease 3 months after it's been executed, and I have a problem with that.
Mr. Vakelis, could you explain why we're being asked to do this after it's already been executed?
I think Mr. Posey has the answer to that question.
Actually, through purchasing, this is, we have to, Madam Chair, we have to go through purchasing and they asked us to go ahead and make it 3 years rather than year to year, which is usually what we do.
I would like to issue a strong request on behalf of the Assembly that we get items before they're actually executed. Otherwise, it's sort of a pointless exercise. So, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, thank you, Mr. Posey. Please vote. And that's approved 7-4. The next item before us is 9E5. This is AIM 26. It's the sole source procurement report for the month of February 2012.
Move to accept.
Go ahead, Mr. Trombley.
It's on page 3 of 9 Echo 5 or page 142 of the entire packet. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing it's the 3rd item down. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I think it's Grow Eggers, LLC. And it's to provide specialized legal services for Planning and Zoning Commission to assist and coordinate proposed changes to Title 21. And it doesn't state what exactly they're going to be doing. We've already spent $30,000 on a contract with Mr. Coffey, and so this is another $15,000. So it's $45,000, I'm assuming, for Title 21. Was it $60,000? $230,000. So increase that. So it's $60,000. Here's another $15,000. It's just the price tag for the Title 21 rewrite seems to be creeping up. I was just curious, what exactly will they be doing for the Planning and Zoning Commission? And the money's already spent, so that's...
Yeah. Mr. Vakelis, is this the money that I requested?
I believe part of it is, yes, ma'am.
All right. I'd like a comment after Mr.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, Ms. Trombley, basically, in discussion with the Commission and the Assembly Chair, the money was used for sole source to hire a contractor to provide assistance to the Planning Commission because we have quite a few new planning commissioners and they're on somewhat of an expedited review of what they have before them because they weren't part of the previous decisions to help them organize and structure their changes that they're looking at presently, and they're within a 45-day window of accomplishing that. She's already started to work. She's about a third of the way through the money.
Okay.
Thank you. And if I could chime in.
Yes.
I have a strong desire, and I think the Assembly shares, to get this thing moving. I've met with the Planning and Zoning Commission chair, and she expressed some frustration. Planning staff, frankly, just doesn't have the time to take good minutes of their motion or their discussion in work sessions. That was their main concern. And so she wanted somebody there to handle the clerical work of actually recording their thought process for their main things that they agreed on they wanted to discuss. My sense is this would be helpful in getting this thing moving and getting it to us sooner. It was part of the commitment to get it to us by June was this process. So I went to the administration and I frankly pleaded with this and said that I would, if they didn't do it, I was going to put in an amendment before the body at first quarter in order to get this thing going. So
Is it the assembly budget or is it Fund 181?
Well, at this point, it's not in a
designated.
specific, I didn't go that far. I just wanted P&Z to have the staff so they could get the work done. That was why I requested it of administration. Mr. Trainee?
Ma'am, will this guarantee this will be, Title 21 will be passed before you leave office?
I sure
You have a
hope.
promise made to me that you'll not leave here until Title 21 is passed.
Well, I tell you, I sure hope it does. The chair of Planning and Zoning Commission believes that it is going to be an incredible help. I've had a further conversation with her where she indicated that it's already helping, and I'm trying to keep tabs of it to make sure that it's moving.
Thank you, ma'am.
So if anybody has any further question, I have had some, I'm really trying to follow it and expedite it. Mr. Starr?
Is that contract specific to the planning and zoning support? And you can nod. So is there any carryover support that would be provided to this body?
Madam Chair, Ms. Starr, it's specifically for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's basically to provide the services as the chair pointed out.
Okay, thank you.
They wanted more than this, and they're hoping to utilize some of the money from the old task force that was present under the Begich administration. There was some leftover money there for the real estate task force to match with this, so they could have clerical through their meetings to bring everybody up to speed. So, thank you very much. And I sure hope there's no objection to this. All right. Anything else, Mr. Trombley?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Please vote on acceptance of the report. And that is accepted unanimously. We are now at the persons to be heard. And the first one, I'm losing my paperwork there again. Mr. Potter, is this the ice skating again? Yes. Excellent.
While my guests are coming down, I will assure Mr. Trainee that the help that the attorney is giving the Planning and Zoning Commission has definitely, in my observation, sped the process up and will be a definite help to get it to you.
Thank you.
So, my name is Tim Potter with Anchorage Skates. Tonight with me is Larry Howell with Anchorage Skates and Nancy Heine, who is the president, current and next year president of the Alaska Speed Skating Club, and then Nan Thompson, also with Anchorage Skates. This is our fourth year coming in front of the Assembly and presenting a check for $10,000 to the mayor, and that is to assist with offsetting the cost of the ice maintenance at the Cuddy Family Midtown Park, the skating oval. Now, I want to remind all of the Assembly members and everyone watching and listening that the oval is actually a year-round facility utilized by the general public, all ages and all capabilities, all 4 seasons. We happen to believe that having ice there is something to keep the area active during the winter so that all ages and all capabilities can get exercise, meet, and have activities. The club sponsors a series of races through the year. Anchorage Skate has sponsored a variety of events out there, including a winter solstice skate by torchlight, since the lights aren't installed yet. We're hoping for the rest of the money to show up. The underground electrical is there. The foundation bases are there for the poles. Now we just need the rest of the money to get the lights in. And during the winter, you'll see an exceptional increase in utilization of that. I think probably a couple of the things to report this year beyond the activities that we had is that Fur Rendezvous for the first year did use the oval and the pond for community skate activities during Fur Rendezvous. They look like they'll be using that as a future venue, which is very exciting. We did, Anchorage Skates commissioned the shop class at Central Middle School to build a shed to store the equipment that was acquired with Anchorage Skates money, completed and installed. It's a very nice shed and part of their educational program. And lastly, just wanted to let you know that we have a new member of our honorary board, and that is Bonnie Cruikshank. I don't know if any of you know who she is. In a previous life, prior to marriage, she was an Olympic star. I think the most highly decorated, medaled winter athlete the United States has had. And in speed skating, Bonnie Blair, she is signed on as a honorary board member and has already been working to kind of coax the legislature into approving the budget for their matching part of the money for the lights for the Oval. I think Larry wanted to do two things, and that was to challenge the mayor. This will be good. And second, just explain why this Oval is so special.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Mr. Mayor. My name is Larry Howell. I've been a member of Anchorage Skates from the beginning, working hard on the fundraising. It is one of 6 400-meter official-size ovals in the country. It's a phenomenal facility for Anchorage. I happen to remember back in the 70s when I was in high school working to build the Kincaid Park trails at night with chainsaws. I don't think we were supposed to be out there, but we were helping to build those trails. And you can see how that cross-country ski program has blossomed into a phenomenal facility and our tremendous athletes that we have. We see to have the same vision for this particular skate oval. So in that spirit of competition, what I would like to do is challenge the Honorable Mayor to a race. And in fact, I would be willing to even spot the good mayor, maybe 50, 60 meters. And he's got a lot better hair than I do. So, but I'll put up $1,000, and it goes to the second place winner of our race as a donation from Anchorage to Anchorage Skates. And
I don't think we should put the mayor on the spot right now.
Well, I'm pleased to take him on in a 60-meter race.
no, this is a 400-meter race, and it can be on a dry track or it can be on skates. Excuse me?
We'll see you on the tennis court, Howell.
Well, thank you. It's been a valuable contribution and a valuable facility in our state.
And with that, I would like the mayor to come down and have Nancy present the check to the mayor, again, for the 4th consecutive year, $10,000. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
CFO's already got her designs on this. Thank you so much, you guys.
Should we race?
Give me a head start. I like it.
Yeah.
You're doing good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item before us is 12B, and Charlene Howe is going to present the Sister City Commission report. There you are.
I just have a report. I don't have any money. I'd like to ask the commissioners who are here, as well as our staff support, to come down so I can introduce them. And you do have the report with you. We just sure value your time just seeing what we have been doing. It's been an active year this last year. We're looking forward to another celebration with Darwin, Australia. They are going to send a delegation over here for the 30th anniversary celebration of being sister cities with us. So I would like to introduce those on the commission. We have Father Norman Elliott, who is here. He represents the city of Whitby, England. We have Ian Dutton, who is one of our newest members, and he's working on public relations. Colette is our vice president. And then we have Chris, forget your last name. Kaczynski, of course. Yes, and Chris is just working on Darwin, so he's one of our newest members, and he's now going to be very active in the celebration. and we have Gail Mathieson, and she's working with Tromsø, Norway. So we sure thank you for looking at our report, and we are working hard. We're maybe like to ask you to consider, we are a volunteer group, and if we could maybe have 2 more members on the commission to. Anyway, Jay Jackson is our staff support. I asked her to come down, but anyway, she is our staff support. But we're hoping that maybe 2 additional, if there's 2 additional applicants, that they will be considered. So that's it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do for us. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to take about a 20-minute break. The next item when we come back is the school district budget. Oops. Good thing you're watching me. All right. Let's do these before we take our break, okay? Hopefully they won't take too long. 11A is before us. This is AR 71. It's a resolution authorizing a transfer of management authority for a portion of Lot 8, Section 7, Township 13 North.
Waive
Grade
reading.
2, basically for expansion of ML&P's Sullivan Power Plant at Ship Creek Glen Highway facility. This is continued, and there is no motion pending.
Move approval.
Mr. Starr, you want to speak to it?
Mr. Vaquelos, 2 things. Why did we postpone it from the last meeting? Do you remember? It was a carry-forward item. I didn't know what was the issue.
I don't remember, Mr. Starr.
The next one's a little more tricky. Is that are they already clearing trees?
I drove by there the other day. I didn't see them clearing trees. I know it's all surveyed and they're ready to go, but I didn't see them clearing.
Yeah, they're going down as we speak. And so, again, I just wanted to make sure we gave the public due here their time to weigh in on anything that may be encroachment. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Oswald just reminded me. It did not require a public hearing at all.
Yeah, I understand, but it's still public process, and so the tree clears before the horse kind of concept. But that's all. I hope it comes online. And will that power plant expansion take several years, or what's the time frame that the public can expect?
I believe it's about 18 months to 2 years to get it on board.
Started today, I guess. Thank you. It's going to be a common item for question. That's why I bring it up. Yeah. It's right off the Glen. It's just going to be significant from what the public sees. So, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Seeing no discussion, please vote. That's approved unanimously. The next item before us is a notice of reconsideration of AO 2012-31S. It's basically the ordinance that amended 4.40.030 and 23.10.1034 to provide for 3-member building board, hearing panels, refundable filing deposits.
Waive reading.
All right. There was we need a motion.
Reconsider.
That item is before us. I'm going to remind the body that discussion has to be limited to the topic of reconsideration. Mr. Flynn, you're first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, I was going to ask you for just a touch of latitude because I think I may have made a mistake in the amendment that I offered. So I wanted a clarification from Mr. Trombley. We put in a sunset date of December 31, and did you ask for December 31 or December 1 when we initially contemplated this a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Trombley?
Madam Chair?
As far as
the sunset date, which date did you want? Because
I thought you said 31st, so I put 31st.
That's what you wanted?
Yes, if you're all right with that.
Okay, that was the question I had. I apologize for the somewhat it'll affect my decision on reconsideration.
All right, Ms. Drummond.
I was going to say I listened to the video this afternoon, and he did ask for the 31st of December.
Yeah, there's concurrence. All right, seeing no further discussion? You're not in queue. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, I do want to speak.
We're a little confused here.
Yeah.
The discussion is, do you want to reconsider? So it'd be appropriate if you want to give rationale.
Yes.
Ms. Gray-Jackson?
Go ahead.
You're in queue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, first off, I'd like to, as everybody knows, Ms. Drummond and I were on the phone, And for the benefit of my constituents and the public, I'm an Assembly member who doesn't agree with the fact that Assembly members can join meetings by phone. And I plan my personal travel around Assembly meetings so that I can be here in person. I'm a member of the National League of Cities, and the National League of Cities Anchorage has been a member for 50 years. It's a wonderful organization. So far, they have a prescription drug program that has saved citizens in this community over $11,000. It's an advocacy organization that contributes to the passage of vital legislation in cities that receive millions of dollars from the federal government, including us. And when our schedule used to be prepared, the National League of Cities meetings used to be taken into consideration, and they aren't anymore, and that's the reason why I was on the phone alone with Ms. Drummond, and I had to say that, frankly. I couldn't hear. I could hardly hear. I know that we had a work session, and the staff of the planning department, or building safety, they were adamantly against this ordinance. And they were adamantly against it because they felt that it brought complexity to the process. There were costs involved. The building board also voted 7-2 against this ordinance. As it stands right now, the building official, she has the authority to make any changes that, and she currently works with the builders to come up with something that works. The last appeal that went before the board was 5 years ago. The ordinance contradicts Title 21, and it's understood that the home builders have a lot of frustrations with building safety, but building safety currently works with them to solve many issues, and many of the issues really have to do with the lack of staffing at the permit counter. And in addition, the building official already has the power to waive the appeal fee when there is a financial hardship demonstrated, and I believe that the summary of economic effects is inaccurate. At the very least, if we're going to deal with this ordinance again, I think that we really, really should, that why don't we just reduce the fee to $100 and give the building official an opportunity to work with the builders to come up with some consensus that is right, not just for a small group of people, but for everyone within our community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I just want to remind the body we're not arguing merits, we're arguing should we reconsider. Mr. Starr.
Reconsideration.
Well, I miss very few meetings, but when I do, I commend the clerk's office for that process, which they provide us data both timely and via email, via meeting. So I'll challenge whether or not that's the case. I've never had any trouble hearing. I've called into 2 meetings and I can hear just fine. So the decorum of our body in the reconsideration is typically around the surmise that new information was presented after you voted, and I didn't hear any reference to new information that is significant to the protocol for reconsideration. So I would ask clearly that there's something that's new that you learned after you voted that would require us to bring it back for reconsideration that's significant enough to reconsider. And I didn't hear anything. So is there a specific piece of data that you heard? You recited exactly what the debate surrounded for over the period of time, but I heard nothing that said that there was a significant piece of data to value reconsideration.
Mr. Starr, thank you very much for your comments.
Ms. Gray-Jackson, I'll get back to you, but Ms. Drummond's been waiting, and she's also a co-sponsor, so I'm going to let her respond.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Drummond, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. We all received an email this morning at about 10:45 from Craig Fredine, a licensed engineer who is currently a member of the building board. And he presented a significant amount of information. I'm not going to read it into the record. It's 2 pages of fine print. But what we approved a couple of weeks ago will most likely make this appeal process take way longer than the process that is in place right now that has not been taken advantage of by the building community. In addition, I reviewed I agree the clerk's office does a pretty good job of keeping us up to date on our issues when we're participating from a distance. But the sound quality over the phone is horrible. If we were able to listen and watch the live web stream, that would be fine. That quality is perfect. And there is money in the budget, I believe, for improving the sound system in this room. But that's another discussion. the web stream, the live web stream, is anywhere from 20 seconds to 2 minutes out of whack with what's actually going on in this room. So if you're trying to hear what's going on, you have to listen to the phone. And the sound quality is horrendous. And I don't know if it has to do with the distance of the speakers from the pickup that, the microphone pickup that broadcasts to us on the phone. But it's very difficult to hear. In addition, it was 1:45 a.m. in Washington, D.C. when Ms. Gray Jackson and I were participating in this particular item of discussion. And the benefit of reconsideration is so that we can reconsider the kinds of decisions that we make in the dark of night. And I don't think there's anybody who's going to get hurt by reconsidering this. In fact, when I listened to the tape, I heard a number of members of this body express quite a lot of reservations, and I'm trying to figure out why we all voted yes on this thing. On the other hand, it's a good thing we voted yes, or Ms. Gray Jackson and I would not have been able to request reconsideration unless we were in the affirmative. I think the mayor's comments were the most telling. He said, we're not afraid to try some new things, but he was surprised to hear this come forward as the administration held a builders roundtable and talked for 3 hours, and the building community didn't bring this up as an issue at all. So I'm just wondering why we did this, particularly since there was a great deal of reservations expressed by staff with the support of Mr. Vacalis at the work session prior to this meeting. I'm just respectfully asking that this body act on its statements that I heard again when I listened to the debate and discussion this afternoon, and reconsider this item and actually go with what we're thinking, not with what we're feeling. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so everybody knows, reconsideration is debatable, so it's okay to have this conversation. When we had our work session, the staff spoke to the Assembly at that work session, and as I mentioned a few moments ago, it was very compelling. They were adamantly against it for all the right reasons. And when I was on the phone, couldn't see who was here, and when I asked for the administration's comments, I was hoping that the same staff that spoke to us at the work session would again get to the mic and respond to my request, except it was the mayor. And if I had been here in this auditorium, I would have politely asked the mayor to hold off his comments, that I would like to hear what the staff had to say at the work session publicly. I didn't have that opportunity, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no one else in queue, please vote. A yes vote will reconsider, a no vote will not. And the motion for reconsideration fails by 3-8. So with that, let us take our break, and when we get back this time, we will consider the school district budget. It'll be about 20 to 25 minutes. Thank you. We're in recess. We are at item 14A on our agenda. It's A025. This is an ordinance determining and approving the total amount of the annual operating budget for the Anchorage School District for the fiscal year 2012-2013, determining and appropriating a portion of the Assembly-approved budget amount to be made available from local sources. If you would like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward, but I'd like to reserve the first spot for the school board president and the superintendent.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Gretchen Guess. I'm the president of the Anchorage School Board. Couple notes, just high level. First, I wanted to thank the Assembly for 2 meetings last week. One was some time I got to spend with Mr. Hall and Mr. Starr that was really helpful and is going to be really helpful to the board going forward. And the other was the work session on Friday with the Assembly and the school board. In the last year, I thought it was the best dialogue and discussion that we've had, and thank you for chairing that. It's really I don't know if you guys know how much progress we made on Friday, but there was a lot of progress made for our body and clarity of understanding. So I appreciate that. In front of you is the budget. We did spend time on Friday. I'm not going to review anything else. I'll take questions, but just to say we did stay within the 1% of the resolution in the fall. That resolution or that signal from the Assembly in the fall continues to be very helpful as we create our budget. So that is a tradition that I know we are going to want to continue. So with that, I'll answer any questions that members may have.
I think we'd just appreciate if you'd stick around.
I'm not going anywhere.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. If you'd like to testify on the Anchorage School District budget, please come forward. Anybody? Boy, not a soul? Oh, there you go. I knew there'd be somebody now.
Good evening. My name is Billy Ray Powers. I really hate to have to come with a spiel like this, but the school system is not getting it done. And I feel like I'm just repeating myself. 1/3 of 9th graders aren't graduating because they can't pass an 8th grade level test. So that means that our success stories are passing an 8th grade level test. Now, granted, some are doing a little better than that in their 12, 13 years. But, when I go to have a brake job done on my car, I'm hoping that it's going to be a good job when I get done paying for it. And we're paying for it. We're looking at $19,000 per student per year. That's $250,000 by the time they get to 12th grade. And we can't graduate, but based on an 8th grade test, I'm really not happy with it. I have a report card here in my pocket. It's a straight A report card. If anybody would like to see it, my daughter's going to graduate here in about a month. But it isn't because I just sent her to my school and enrolled her in the system. We spent hours and money and time, and we drove our kids to schools that were in the rich neighborhoods. And that's the only way we got it done. And even with this straight A report card, I don't know if she's ready for the global economy. I don't know if she's ready to compete in this world. I have my doubts. Alaska is dead last in the country. We're dead last. I got to take my hat off to the mayor who is really pushing. He's got these summits going. There may be something good come out of that. But I would be a no vote on $19,000 per student per year with this kind of results. We're having to spend big money for cops, too. The reason we have to do that is because our kids aren't educated. They're hanging in the neighborhoods. They're dealing drugs, man, because they can't get past 8th grade. I'm not happy. And I've been here a long time. I'll cut it short right there. Thanks for listening to me. Like I say, I hate to have to repeat myself. And these are good people here in the audience, too. They work hard, I know. The system has let us down. The program isn't working. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to testify?
Do I need to say my name?
Please.
Okay, my name is Phyllis Spencer Bills, and I just wanted to say that my daughter's 14. She's in a private school for a reason. I went to the Anchorage School District when I was young, and the dropout rates are especially among the minority community, are unreal. And I know you're doing the best you can, but you've got to keep that in mind. Okay, there's a lot of people who just prefer not to have their kids in public school because of the teacher to student ratio, among other things. And the kids are our future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who'd like to testify, please come forward.
There we go. For the record, my name is David Neese. The school board budget and the process of education in Anchorage is not perfect, and the budget process itself is flawed. The mayor's conferences show there's quite a bit of dissatisfaction with it right now. What I'd like you to consider is that the budget that you're approving now is probably subject to somewhere like a $28 or a $30 million adjustment coming up when the legislature gets done with its funding. I'd like you to consider as a body that if it does get adjusted upwards, that you fix the cost of the budget at where it is right now and reduce the municipal taxpayers' amount by whatever the legislature gives back in additional funding. In other words, once they set a budget, make them stick to it, because then the hard choices will be made, and hopefully along the road it'll end up being a better education for more value. If you allow the budget to continue to get changed every time the legislator allocates more money, it makes it really, really difficult for tighten the strings, knuckle down, and deliver a product. So I would like you to consider that when you look at the budget, if you approve it, that you say it will not exceed this amount, even if you get additional money, and reduce the taxpayers' load if they do get additional money. Make them operate within their budget that they set. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to testify? Hearing and seeing no. Do you want to testify?
My name is Jennifer Burkholder, and I am a counselor in the Anchorage School District and a concerned parent regarding the elementary school counselors.
And I am Beth Von Gimmigan. I'm a school counselor.
You're going to have to pull the name.
And a concerned parent at the Anchorage School District. And we recently, a lot of us school counselors and a lot of people from the community have sent letters to the Assembly, and I have gotten some responses. Thank you very much. And so I'm just up here to reiterate that we are hoping that you will reconsider providing funding for for the Anchorage School District on behalf of school counselors, who are pretty much the foundation of working with the elementary school kids, and we are the people that bridge the gap into middle school and to seniors, and we are the people that actually affect the bottom line of graduation rates. I have a letter, but I guess what I really wanted to do was be able to give you letters from our students.
You can do that by giving it to the clerk, and she'll pass them out to all of us.
Okay. I only have one copy of each. I didn't know if you wanted a whole bunch of papers, so whoever I can get those to, that would be great. Okay.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to testify? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Motion?
Move to approve, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay, that budget is before us. Discussion? Mr. Starr.
Is that because no one else is in the queue, or they want to hear what I have to say?
You're first.
If you don't want to say anything, Bill, go ahead.
No, I do. I think it's important, and I see faces that were here last year, and I'm happy to be here again. You know, it would be easy for this body to just sort of say approved and put the burden back onto the school board that brought us this budget and over to the administration that prepared it. But that's not how government is supposed to work. And it's challenging for me because I'm often interpreted as my questions and debate are full of friction. And that's probably just because this is probably one of the most important things I do in the course of my public service, and I take it seriously. It's not a disclaimer or an apology, it's just an understanding of how important this is. the fallout of that, of course, is that I tend to border on disrespect to the leadership at times, and at times I perhaps make light of how hard people are working every day. But those that know me, I hope, understand that I'm committed to the educational process of that. That's part of the reason why I moved here, and I embrace it as both a volunteer and now in this service role. In that regard, I hope my reputation also is that I do my homework and I ask the hard questions. In the hard questioning is the challenge that comes with the need that we do things better. And in some cases now we're going to need to do them more efficiently. I believe firmly that we're starting to crest on the ability for this community to support the district, either through increased taxes at an increased level, or we're starting to see a softening in Juneau. Some of it is related to, of course, the economy challenges that we're seeing, the oil debate, all the other things that go with that. But I also firmly believe, both looking at this budget, which is going to be somewhere in the $800 million range in spending plan, and the $400 million that we do on the other side, that's $1.2 billion for a community our size. That's a big, big challenge. I want to move into the technical speak, and this is a lot of it is the direction to my colleagues here, in that one of the primary documents that we should be evaluating this budget on is the one that we provide the guidance to, and the school board president alluded to it, and that's our assembly resolution that we prepare, and in this case I believe it passed with a little bit of debate, but there's elements of that in there that come out of first a budgetary process developed at the Budget and Finance chair, and then we provide the guidance that ultimately turns into where the budget hopefully is built back and brought to us. And that's what I'm primarily measuring now. And as Ms. Guess put to you, it does measure, of course, what's important to a lot of folks is how much are my taxes going to go up. And make no mistake, the taxes will go up. The budget's not any smaller, so the reference to cutting programs or that, it's not the case. We do not have a smaller budget this year than we did last year, so that's really the case. There are several points, and I won't respond to them in reading what they are. However, the 1% tax goal was initially presented as a flat tax goal. That's really what was brought forth. The 1% increase has been met in this budget. There is no question. But I don't look at it as just a wiping of the brow, who we made it. I look at it more as a fiscal responsibility to put together a spending plan that addresses not just today, but where are we going? And you also have to look at where have we come from. And we asked for several aspects to be looked at. The budget really needs to be measured against this from my perspective. We don't meet muster in one aspect that's on our resolution statement, and that is I think it was judicious recommendations as it comes to bonded indebtedness. We are in debt deeply in this community. I don't have the active number near me, but I want to say we're in the upwards of $1.2 billion in debt in our community. That's a lot of money. So when we go back into debt, yes, it's important to recognize how much we're retiring, but it's also important when we go to the voters to ask for money, what are we going to do with it? The new program initiative that's seeing muster is Career and Technical and Education Programs, CT&E, as you've seen them. There's some ballot language on there now where we're asking for that. I'll be pointed that I don't believe we're ready as a community to embrace CT&E yet. There is no or was no approved master plan at the time we talked about that. We had a master plan in front of the school board for the West Romig money that's supposed to come down there, but no clear action plan. I'm not being critical of that per se, but I want to do it right. When we do get the money, we do convince the voters to give us the bond money. I want to bring it forth and do it right. This budget doesn't do that. We have no fiscal forecasting. We've seen a new Department 1040 in this budget book, which is just going up. I need more information. I beat up the school district and the decision makers pretty heavy on Friday of last week as it related to the fiscal plan. And I will speak very candidly to some of the school board members that are here, and not in a disrespectful tone, but do not hide behind the charter language that references policy versus what is the right thing to do. a year ago, and I speak so passionately about this, is that I tried to make my case on why a fiscal plan that has fiscal elements in it, quantifying the growth languages, is important. And what you brought me was a fiscal policy statement that has no numbers in it. And do not hide behind that charter language, because a fiscal plan is how we're going to meet our goals together. I need to know where we're going. I need to know how you're going to start to address the $20 million forecast of a deficit that's in your budget this year. You forecast to me the taxes are not going up next year or the year after that. Do you really want me to bring forth a resolution that says tax at $199 million for the next 3 years? Don't do it. It's disingenuous. It sends the wrong message out there that you have on V14 in your budget book, a forecast that shows decreasing debt service and a fact of that. Bring us a fiscal plan. Let's work together to develop it. That you did not meet muster for the Assembly resolutions, and I'll speak clearly with that, because it's the only way we're going to move together as a body if we know where you're going. And I need to go down there, and if you bring us one, as I put my case forward on Friday, I'll help you lobby for it in Juneau. I'll help convince this body, but I have to know where you're going. It's disingenuous to not do that. We asked you also in the resolution to look for shared services and the opportunities where the municipality could focus on what it does well, plowing the roads and keeping the lights on and all the other things that the municipality does well. And in my observation, we gave you the authority to say educate the children, focusing on that message. We had an opportunity that was missed as well. You had a Thursday meeting, a rare Thursday meeting last week. You approved an ASD data center out on J-Bear. This is a $2.7 million, basically an independently operated facility that did not allow appropriate debate throughout what was the right thing to do. And for those of you who know how that debate considered, yes, you went through your process and debated $2.7 million. If there was a way for me to get that out of this budget, I would do it, because we need to bring that back to those guys that can make those decisions, meaning the administration, the school board, us and the mayor, and do this right. We're going to miss that opportunity. We're going to grow a Taj Mahal out on J-Bear that will not serve both entities. You missed the muster on that. The public approval process is part of what we do here, and Mr. Trainey will remind me that I can only adjust the tax burden and the upper limit of spending. But that said, I expect that the budget needs to be scrubbed. We're going to reach that point where you're going to have to decide where we can best put our educational goals to that. You can look at my question and answer basis that I sent out to some of the administration. I'm sure you all read it. I'm not going to move amendments to reduce the tax burden for that, but look at your nurses and your nurses' aides in the high schools, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Do we really need, $1.8 million every year to support a bag of ice? You've got technologies now where insulin pumps are in place. The medicines last all day. Start to think outside of the box and distribute those funds to what's more important. I don't think the parents will eat you up for that. I think they'll say, good moves. These kids drive. It's time to take their own health. Do we really need 2 policemen in every school? Do we really need that? I don't know, but let's have the discussion and let's think outside the box on that. Pair that up with a hall monitor and a security and an assistant principal and all the others. It's time to have those conversations. This is not the place to do that for me. You brought me a budget with that stuff in there. I challenge you next time to take all that stuff out and scrub it and bring it down so that we can put more money in those teachers' classrooms. That's where it's going to go. There's no cutting going on here. There's programs that do it. I will say, in the respect that was reached out, I'm going to be a yes vote tonight, because I believe that the dialogue was started in a very positive way, and I put that to Ms. Guess. I will speak clearly, and I'll put names to that. I did not put that into Mr. Friedman's statement, who says you can't build a budget more than 1 year in a row. You have to do fiscal planning, folks, and it's not the new drum for me. We've been doing it over here. The MOA has one. Give me one. And again, if I don't see some of it next year, if I don't see the resolutions supported in all of the factors, I'm going to be a no. I'm still going to be on this body, and I'm going to send the message, and I'll lobby these guys hard. There's no rubber stamp up here. I hope I communicate my message. I look forward to the leadership that steps up. Ms. Como, you've done a wonderful job. I think that there's a lot of respect that you and I should have. Hopefully this yes vote gives you the unanimous support of what's important to us, and that's to the children. You've done a wonderful job on that. So this isn't a gift. This is a partnership, and I think we've come a long way in a year. But my comments and being critical were just that, and I hope you'll temper those and we turn them into action statements as opposed to just continuing friction. So help me send that message, and we've got a lot of work to do in the next year. So thank you for your time.
Mr. Trombley.
I'll just mention two concerns that I expressed at the work session. But I want to start it out by thanking the school board, and particularly Mrs. Guess, for meeting the financial aspect of our resolution, the 1%. I really do appreciate that, and I know that that was hard to do, but I appreciate the work. And these things obviously go outside, but I just want to reiterate them outside the authority of the Assembly. But I just want to reiterate them when it comes to fiscal policy. And I see the budget, how you're dipping into fund balance, and it's increasing steadily over time. You can only do that for so long in order to meet your budget needs. And so I would hope, and again, this is completely your decision, but I would hope that your fiscal policy would state that a portion of one-time funding that you do get from the state outside of what we approve now does go to pay some of that back into fund balance. I think that's smart fiscal policy. And the second thing I wanted to say, and one thing that does concern me, is that on paper, this year's budget does come in, on paper, $6 million, roughly $6.3 million less than it did last year. But the main cost driver to that is the assumption that you're going to get $10 million less this year from the state than you did last year. And I don't think that's realistic. And so I know that's just the nature of the way that the legislature works as opposed to when your budget is done and when we approve it. But it is difficult for me because I know, and if I was a betting man, I would put it down in Vegas, that at some point in time, it's going to come back to us to increase your upper limit. And so I'll just reiterate Mr. Starr's comments that I think it's to bring to us that you're going to get less from the state this year than last year just isn't realistic, because I know that the legislature doesn't see it that way. And so again, I appreciate your hard work, Ms. Como. I appreciate your hard work as well, and you will be missed.
Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to begin by saying that I very much agree with the statements that Mr. Starr made in regards to developing the 6-year fiscal plan. I think it's critical. With that, though, I do want to move on. Ms. Guess, I couldn't agree more. The meeting last Friday is the best that we've ever joined in and truly had, I felt, communication with each other in regards to where we want to go and where we want to see the school district go. The meeting that you and I had with Mr. Starr as well, it was hard to believe that 2.5 hours could go as quickly as it did. But I think there were a real interchange of goals and objectives for what we want to do. I particularly want to address the two parents that spoke this evening. I have 3 kids, and I've got 8 grandkids that have gone through and are going through the Anchorage School District. And I take a great deal of pride in the fact that all 3 of my kids turned out fantastic. They've got great families, they got a great education, they had a great time going through the Anchorage School District. I will also admit that I was pretty intimately involved with their education as they were going through. They were always astounded at how I knew what they had done before they knew I knew what they had done. But that comes with being involved in what's going on. And the sad part about it is, Mr. Powers, if all the parents of all the kids in the Anchorage School District were committed and as involved as you are, we wouldn't be having this discussion this evening. I think that we put a tremendous burden on our educators in the fact that we have a real problem with what we've got in education today. But by the same token, I'm going to tell you, all of us have sit around and let it evolve, is just the reality. And I have a concern when we start talking about vouchers and, putting kids into private school. Private schools don't play by the rules that public schools play by, not even close. If you have a problem child in a private school, there's no problem dealing with it. So those kids are in an entirely different learning environment, and I guarantee you that in every one of those instances, the parents are intimately involved in their kids' education. And at the end of the day, that's what truly makes a difference. I can't believe this, but, Mr. Rick Rios has retired from the Anchorage School District, and the CT&E program is where it is today because of the devotion that Mr. Rios showed. Not only showed, but literally went in and he walked the talk, no question about it. Enough to the point that he's convinced me to get out of bed and meet with him at 7:30 in the morning because he's been contracted to help develop the 5-year plan for CT&E, and he's asked me to sit with him and do a review as well as being involved with it as it continues on. But it appears that it's fleshed out enough that he's got something to take a look at. So I too, Carol, you've done a phenomenal job. You're able to leave with your head held high, and we all will truly miss you. We don't want to end up missing you from this community. Now, I want to reiterate that. You can leave the district, but you're not to leave Anchorage. So just let's all roll our sleeves up, and I hope that we have a lot more meetings this next year like the one we had last Friday. Thank you.
Ms. Johnston.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Crystal Kennedy and Jeff Friedman for their service. They're both leaving us. And then, of course, I would like to thank Carol Como for her service. We've had a very interesting relationship for the last almost 5 years, and I respect you a great deal, and thank you for your service. This year's budget packet, as I said at the Friday's meeting, was the best I've seen in the 5 years. I agree with Mr. Starr as far as the 6-year fiscal plan. It wouldn't be something I would take to the bank. But I did think you made great progress with your fiscal policy, which had never really been addressed before. And I appreciated your education dashboards. And as Ms. Como and I have had many conversations, I've said, don't tell me that you just need more money. We can do this if we put our sights on a direction, and it's not about money as much as about how we do it. That being said, I would like to challenge this body and the new school board. I think it really is time that we have a policy-level discussion on shared services. And I want to be, and our chairs heard me say this many times, and I want to be a large part of that. I think we really need to talk about having the school board dealing with education and taking the facilities, the plowing, everything that's non-education out of the picture, or at least share in operating that, so that the school board can concentrate on education. And I think that's when Mr. Starr talks about looking outside the box, I think that's one of the ways we can look outside the box, and I think this body can be very helpful and should be a big part of that discussion, because it should be set at a policy level where it's not piecemealed, it's a true shared service entity that handles all of the maintenance, all of the facilities. And it's not something that if somebody says, oh, no, it doesn't work because of blah, 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 we have to say as a policy board, no, we are going to make it work. And I hope everybody is somewhat in agreement on this. and I look forward to further conversations. Again, thank you all for your service.
Mr. Trainee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Carol, I'm going to miss you. We've done this a lot of years together, haven't we? I raised 8 kids in Anchorage School District. I think you know them by name for various reasons. They've been to see you over the years. I think we have 14 grandkids. I think we have 11 in the school district now. You have a great school district. It runs well. What the kids are, they do that on their own. But I've never had an ounce of complaint on the education my kids have gotten. They've gotten a good education. How they use it is up to them, as it is for every child. But thank you for your service to the school district. And I've been reminding this body, as I did on Friday, we have 2 functions. One's the total dollar tax we give you. The other is your total dollar budget. Beyond that, we cannot tinker with your budget. If assembly members want to do that, I suggest they run for the school board. Then they can get in the trenches where this actually occurs at. But thank you for bringing us a budget we can deal with tonight. You did an excellent job. And to Jennifer, there is a way we can change everything radically, ma'am. Look at ordinance the Assembly passed in 1984. That gave all the school district buildings to school district. What we have to do is reverse that ordinance. They all come back to the city of Anchorage. I looked at it years ago, and I told Kara I wouldn't do it again for a while, but she's leaving, so you might want to look at that one. It's already been looked at. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be voting for this one.
Mr. Birch.
Yes, I as well wanted to thank the superintendent. I think this is my 7th budget with the school district, and Mr. Trainee pointed out, although we've received quite a few calls and emails regarding specific district budget items, the Assembly's responsibility is limited to approval or modification to the aggregate budget amount, not individual line items. It was a good work session last week. I think my interest, and as it has been over the last 7 years, is seeing where we can encourage the school district to pursue efficiencies in contracting out and looking at cost competitive ways of delivering non-core services outside the classroom. And I think, whether it's snow removal or anything else, I think, I certainly would encourage the district to pursue that. We also talked a little bit about metrics and how you value or how you would cost out, say, the cost of a diploma. It'd be interesting to know, what is the cost of a diploma. I mean, we have kind of a rough idea, but I know that would be a good use of some of the information, the data that's available to us there. And lastly, I just, like I say, it will be a yes vote, and I wanted to thank the President of the School Board and the Superintendent for certainly their contributions, and Carol, all the best to you and in your future. Thank you.
Mr. Flynn.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess first a question. A couple of folks mentioned that Ms. Guest had a 2.5-hour meeting with Mr. Starr and Mr. Hall. Does the school board have hazard pay available? No, I'm just curious. I jest, of course. Mr. Starr makes some interesting points about fiscal planning, and I guess I would just suggest that we get your finance committee or whatever its equivalent is into a joint session with our budget and finance committee. And I say that because, we have had some very good dialogue on somewhat esoteric topics. Just this last week, we talked about, different ways of handling excess tax revenue and how we do it most fairly to the taxpayers of Anchorage. And I think Mr. Starr mentioned earlier, he actually had a proposal on the table, and after we dialogued about it, decided we didn't need to bring it forward. But it's a good place for, I think, some very thoughtful conversations where we can find some ways to and set some parameters for fiscal plans that make sense to you and to us. And then I guess just sort of, we did hear from some parents who had concerns about, whether the district meets the needs of their students. And the district does have a challenge in that they have to take all comers. It's not you get to pick and choose who comes into your school. I was talking with my son's teacher a couple of weeks ago. He says, hey, yeah, you give me 25 relatively average kids and no problem. But when you give me 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 special needs kids and the additional work that goes into that, it becomes much more difficult to educate all children equally. And so we have to be cognizant of the fact that for some people, Mr. Birch, the diploma is pretty cheap. For some, it's very expensive, and that's where a lot of our challenges lie. Again, I would join my colleagues in thanking the school board and the school district administration for their help. Bon voyage, Mr. Friedman, Ms. Kennedy, and Ms. Como. I will, however, make a motion to enshrine Mr. Hall's request that Ms. Como not be allowed to leave the jurisdiction. If I can get a second. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Honeman.
Well, thank you, and I'll add to my colleagues' well wishes to Mr. Friedman and Ms. Kennedy, and Madam Superintendent Carol Como. Excellent work. Enjoyed working with you on a lot of different levels, both from the executive branch side at the police department and, of course, on the assembly. The way I see it is, I think the biggest challenge for our school district, and something that's not lost on me, is that there are 3 different budget cycles that the school district has to rely on, and none of them line up the same. The stars don't line up all the way, and it adds to a level of complexity, difficulty I can't even begin to fathom. It's just, the federal government starts their budget year on October 1st, the state on July 1st, and the municipality on January 1st. And so to try to set a budget that kind of gels together with all those unknowns is just nothing less than kind of trying to control a circus act, in my opinion. It really is a lot of moving parts there. And the other thing is, I think it would lend well for future school boards and school superintendents and parents, people that live and pay taxes here in the city, is perhaps long-term budgets of 3 to 5 years. We talk, much is made about long-term contracts, but at least then we'd know what we're up against and what cost certainties are, absent things that aren't in our control, like costs of fuel and gas and heating, energy systems and things like that. But, and Mr. Trainey was making a mention about a radical change of bringing back all the properties to put it under the municipality, but I think that would probably jeopardize the ability to gain some state funding, at least at the percentage of matching that the school district enjoys that municipality may or may not be able to, unless some things were changed there. Not sure that that's a good idea, but it's certainly something worth pondering over. There's really challenges, a lot of challenges that we face in our community, and the number one that I've heard over and over and over again is just the money. And it's not so much the fact that we worry about whether the money is enough or whether it's too much. I know everybody's concerned about what they pay, and we should be. I think the challenge, the biggest thing, is how we manage the money and what are the outcomes, if you will, and what are we doing, what decisions are we making that make sense. So I guess that's the challenge that I'm willing to step up to make, and I'm hoping that the new school board, new school superintendent can help meet head on, because we've got plenty of challenges ahead of us. But I just want to remind people, and I've said this before, I'm a product of the Anchorage School District, as is my wife, my 2 children, and my oldest grandson is going through the schools right now. And not only me, but I know, without naming names, that we've had NASA astronaut, we've had a Nobel Prize winner for physics in his studies of the expansion of the universe and supernovae. We've had many, many award-winning teachers and professors, people that own businesses, many mayors. We've got a U.S. senator or 2 that are in and seated right from our homegrown talent in the Anchorage School District. So I know that what we do and the product we deliver works in a large numbers and large percentages, and we shouldn't be afraid to face our challenges for the future, but for the money. The issue is, how do we manage the money, and the focus should always be in the classroom. That's where all the learning is going to go on, and that's where most of the teaching is going to go on. So in the middle of all this, the thought's not lost on me that we need to support this budget, and just remember one thing. Cost per student, Mr. Billy Ray Powers mentioned it earlier. I haven't vetted it out. 19,000 is what you throw at. Well, you know what it costs to incarcerate an inmate in the state of Alaska? Somewhere north of $36,000 a year. So where do we make our investment? And is it really a worthwhile investment? And I'd say yes, every time. So thank you. And I urge a vote yes.
Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm proud to have been a member of the school board that selected Carol Como, and I'm sorry to see her go. But it's well-deserved. I remember when I had your cell phone on my cell phone, and I'd drive past the old building on DeBar, and your little red car was in the parking lot on Sunday. And I'd call Carol and say, Carol, it's time to go home. We have certainly gotten our money's worth in this superintendent, and I know she will be sorely missed. I'm pleased that I was able to help Jeff Friedman get elected 9 years ago, and he has done a fabulous job, and he too will be missed. And Crystal Kennedy, thank you so much for your service to this community. I hope both of you will stick around and continue to provide wisdom in an emeritus sort of position to the remaining board. You're going to have big changes this year. A previous speaker mentioned that this budget is heading towards $19,000 per student spending. I'm sorry, I looked up and down in this budget document, did my math. About the most I can get to is $14,800. So I suggest that somebody needs some work to do in the math department. And this is by no means the most expensive school district of its size in this nation. I used to have access to the 100 largest school districts in the U.S. that the Anchorage School District is a member of, the Great City Schools, and they provided some terrific statistics that allowed you to compare school districts by fund across the board. And there is no way that the Anchorage School District is the most expensive in the nation. There are many that far exceed. In fact, one of them is the former school district of the guy who's coming in as your new superintendent. And I'm sorry, he didn't do the math right either. His former school district costs way more than this one does per student. So I suggest that board pay close attention to the guy who's coming in here to take Carol's place. I have serious concerns about the direction of state support is moving in this budget. I'm embarrassed that the governor has given all of his departments cost of living and inflation increases except education. Education of our kids is job one in the state's constitution, and the state gets an F in the job that they're doing. During my 9 years on the school board, and this is my 13th ASD budget, by the way, for those of you who are counting, the state of Alaska's funding was in the neighborhood of 70% of the general fund. It's now less than 54%. This certainly increases pressure on local property taxpayer, and that's not right. I will support this budget, but I'm concerned about the direction that it's going with state support, and I certainly will work to improve that. Those folks in Juneau are not doing their job, and I hope they come up with a better way of funding schools and a way of funding schools in such time that you can put together an honest budget that does reflect what the state is actually giving, instead of spinning your wheels and developing a budget based on guesses and hopes rather than actual funding. And I think the state is definitely moving in the wrong direction if they don't make some improvements in that department. Thank you.
Ms. Gray Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I'd like to thank the folks who wrote emails to us in terms of the council situation. I really appreciate every single email, and I do believe that I responded to each and every email. And I also want to thank the two ladies who testified this evening. And I'll tell you, it is true. Our only jurisdiction with the school district budget is either increasing the dollar amount or decreasing it. And if I was to make an amendment right now to increase it, number one, I wouldn't get the vote. That's obvious. Number two, I can't assure you that the school district or the school board would use that money to reinstate those positions. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I want to thank the school board for doing such a really, really great job on your budget. And you do a great job every year. You meet with the public, you get input from the public, you listen for the last couple of years to what the Assembly has to say in terms of the tax cap, and quite frankly, you know, I represent 60,000 people in this city, along with Mr. Traney, and I don't have time to do your job, period. So thank you very much for bringing a balanced, well-balanced budget to us, and I'm more than happy to approve it this evening. And one last note, thank you for your service, Carol. And Mr. Freeman and Crystal, thank you so much for your service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Seeing no one else in queue, please vote. It's been a while since we've seen that kind of vote.
Madam Chairman, I move for immediate reconsideration. Urge no vote.
Second.
A move for immediate reconsideration is before you, and no vote has been urged.
Second.
Please vote. and the immediate reconsideration failed. Basically, that was a procedural matter just to make sure that we don't have somebody change their mind tomorrow and we have to go through all this again. So congratulations. Thank you very much. All right. With that, and if you could kind of hold it down as you exit, we'd appreciate it. We're still got some work to do. The next item before us is 14B. Actually, I'm going to wait for just a minute until it dies down a little bit. That was my 18th budget, by the way.
So you're 4 ahead of me.
My 18th ASD budget, yeah. I had 11 on the school board. And then 7 on the assembly.
I know.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. We're at 14B on the agenda. This is AO32. It's an ordinance authorizing retention of the tax foreclosed parcel 051-242-04000, Lot 35, Township 15 North, Range 1 West, Section 19, for real estate public purposes. Anybody like to testify on this matter, please come forward. Mr. Powers.
Yes. Just briefly, Billy Ray, ERS. What property is this? I mean, besides that legal description.
Madam Chair, I can give him a picture of it.
Do you have an address? Or?
It's not an address, but if you...
Mr. Powers, you want to take that map?
Right.
It's out Birchwood Way.
It's basically a parcel that's not really developable, and nobody wants to buy.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, please vote. And that one passes unanimously. We're now at 14C. This is AO33. It's an ordinance amending Ashland Code Section 2680-070 to decrease the recycling initiative surcharge of facilities with no operational scales and to remove a sunset provision. Anybody who'd like to speak to us on this matter, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Is there discussion? Mr. Flynn.
Thank you for fixing our boo-boo. That's all.
All right. Please vote. That item is approved unanimously. The next item is 14D. This is AR 81. It's a resolution of the Assembly approving an alcohol beverage conditional use for a
Waive
package
reading.
store. This is basically for 36th Avenue Liquor at 1205 West 36th Avenue, Suite C. If anybody would like to speak, please come forward. I don't know.
May I give you these?
You give them to the clerk, please. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Bill Borchard. Last name is Borchardt. And
Could you speak in the mic, sir, so our TV can pick you? Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I own a piece of property, a Penguin Trailer Park, just north of the proposed liquor store. And I assume everybody's aware of the street inebriate problem we have. The street people basically hang around liquor stores and make the surrounding property much less valuable and not as much fun to be in. So this map represents the 3 liquor stores that, first of all, the arrow points to the proposed liquor store location. As you can see, there are already 3 liquor stores within 6 to 7 blocks of this location. My boy and I bought the park about 3 years ago, and we worked hard to clean it up, and we have about 50 people that live there. And having even more street inebriates in our area is something we're concerned about. Some of the people on this map, for instance, Mom and Pop Liquor Store, they're in a strip mall, and the strip mall has to hire a full-time security guard during the daytime just to keep the inebriates out of there. So basically, looks to me like Spenard already has enough liquor stores, and with all the problems that the city already has, I can't imagine why you'd want to put another liquor store in the middle of Spenard. So that's basically it.
Sir, I was
Yes.
trying to look at the map. Are you immediately across the street from this?
No, I'm directly north of the, we just did this at the last moment, so it's not graphically great. But we have about 5 acres directly to the north of the proposed liquor store. We're on Spenard Road,
Okay.
and we back up to the little strip mall there.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Mr. Honeman has a question for you.
yes.
So I'm sorry. Did you attend the Spenard Community Council meeting? Are you aware that they passed a resolution supporting this establishment with conditions for their operation?
No, I'm not. I just found out. I've been out of town for a week and just found out about this. If I had a little more time, I know most all the neighbors that I've talked to are not in favor of this. So, I can't imagine why anybody in Spenard would want more liquor stores. We already have so many, and we already have such a liquor problem that but the answer is no. I wasn't aware of that. So it's surprising to me, I have to say.
Oftentimes, and probably for the benefit of others that are here, oftentimes at the request of or at the urging of, or if documentation exists that there are potential problems that exist in a specific business or neighborhood that doesn't exist perhaps in another, there are conditions that are put in, and there are some specific conditions that would go a little ways towards restricting the type of sales and the hours and such on this business. So they may not apply to other businesses that are in this vicinity, but it puts them on notice that they're going to be restricted on certain things.
Yeah, I've seen this before, and the restrictions really don't work. The street people are a lot smarter than the restrictions. I've had property next to liquor stores, but you go to any liquor store in town, if you've ever, I don't know if any of you have ever worked next to a liquor store in Midtown and Spenard, or ever lived next to one, I guarantee you, you won't like it. It's just a constant, never-ending negative experience. So, and as I say, there are already 3 liquor stores in this area. Putting a 4th one in is absurd to me. So, unless there's some kind of ordinance that all the liquor stores have to be in Spenard.
Trust me, there's a whole bunch of them downtown and around different places.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Honeman? Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Bill. Thanks for coming
Hi, Harry.
tonight. As you know, I also watch liquor licenses carefully. I was there in 1999 when we had all those issues with that liquor store.
Sure, I
on
appreciate
A
that.
Street, and we succeeded in shutting them down. I was at the Spenard Community Council. February 1st is when this came before the Spenard Community Council. So these licenses are in the mix for a long time before they come to us. That's almost 2 months ago. And the owner of the liquor store and the restaurant with which it's affiliated is here tonight if the Assembly has any questions for him. And this liquor store will be operated in conjunction with the operating hours of the restaurant. It will not stay open until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning like the other liquor stores do. And it's specified in the resolution that's part of the package. If you picked one up outside or if you have one, it's page 421 of our packet. Item 14D.
Okay, didn't see that, no.
Okay.
And I wasn't aware that this was going to be a restaurant. It looked like it was just going to be a liquor store.
No, it is a liquor store adjacent to the restaurant and operated by the same owners of Milano's.
Okay.
Of their neighbors. They've been neighbors for many years of your trailer park, and the Spenard Community Council agreed that this kind of operation was in keeping with theirs, with their wishes for Spenard, and it was a pretty full room, as I recall. Mr. Hall, I don't remember if you were there, but this passed unanimously by the Spenard Community Council in February.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And there was a large attendance that evening, and no one spoke in opposition.
Could I ask a question, Ms. Drummond? I read the resolution, but I was looking through the language of the specific thing we're voting on, and I don't see anything about the hours in it.
Actually, Madam Chair, on page 391 of our packet, the pages with the dark lines, the operating hours, the normal business hours of operation,
Thank you.
Monday to Sunday, noon to 11 p.m.
Thank you.
That's
I see it now.
And
Thank
that's
you.
actually a shorter span than the resolution from the Spenard Community Council says, which is 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Drummond?
No.
One final question. Have any of you ever been to the mom and pop liquor store or to the one at the corner of Arctic Boulevard, the In-N-Out liquor store, and looked at the building and looked at the premise and looked at how they affect the neighborhood?
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
There appear to be no further questions for you.
All right. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to testify?
Billy Ray Powers. You know, when somebody owns a piece of property, they have a lot of money invested. You know, and possibly the person that has the money invested in this may not like trailer courts either. What I'm saying is, let's let owners find the highest and best use for their properties. And hopefully this owner has respect for his neighbors and tries to keep a clean business. But let's let him do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to testify? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, Mr. Trombley.
No, I was going to speak during debate. I
Okay,
apologize.
then go ahead, sir. Wait a minute.
I'll
Hold-
second it.
Okay, that helps. Thank you.
But I do have an issue, and if Mr. Honeman doesn't object, I'd like to move this to the Public Safety Committee, because on page 380 of our packet, it says approval of this conditional, I'm sorry, I'm speaking of the mic, page 380 of our packet, it says approval of this conditional use will add a 7th alcohol license within 1,000 feet, and it lists those 7. And then on the application, I believe this is the application. Yeah, on the application, which would be of our assembly packet, page 390, the question is asked, within 1,000 feet of your site, how many have active liquor licenses, and it says none. So there seems to be some discrepancy. And I think before we approve this, that issue should be addressed, just for, not to say that the applicant had any malicious intent. It might have been possibly been an oversight, but I think that should be addressed before we accept this.
Madam Chair.
Just a minute. Mr. Honeman is next in queue, and he may want to respond if you don't.
I see what Mr. Trombley is saying, and I don't know how to correct what looks to be a potential oversight or error, but I'm not sure that it needs to go to the Public Safety Committee. I think we can correct some of this here and now as we get ready to take the vote. My considerations would be to make sure that the conditions on this license is somehow or another placed in this ordinance as stipulated in the Spenard Community Council's resolution. Okay, so that would be my question, and I think one of my colleagues is saying he's probably going to bring the applicant up for a conversation. So in any event, I'm not sure that we need to have Public Safety Committee referral before we go to this, but I'll defer to the colleagues in the chair.
All right. Mr. Flynn, you're next, then Mr. Trini, then Ms. Drummond. So go ahead, Ms.
I think I want to follow up with something that Mr. Honeman was saying. So we have,
In your mic, sir?
in our resolution before us, it says all uses shall conform to the plans and narrative submitted with this conditional use application. Ms. Drummond made reference to the hours of operation in the application. However, those are different than what's in the Spenard Community Council resolution, and in no other place other than this Community Council resolution does it address products that served or not served. And so I guess my question is to the attorney or somebody, does the narrative mean everything, and therefore we don't need to have these specific conditions enumerated in our resolution, or does it mean what?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Flynn, actually, those items in the conditional use should have carried over into your resolution. They did not. I have to apologize for that. They are tied together, but we have historically put them in the resolution.
Okay. With that, Madam Chair, I think I have a motion.
Okay, and just for the record, that was Mr. Weaver from the Community Development. All right, go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
I would, from page 421 of our packet, it's the Spenard Community Council resolution, I would ask that items 1 through 5 be added as under section 2, subhead 2, so that those conditional uses are specifically enumerated in the resolution.
And I second that.
And sorry, I hit my button now.
Mr. Weaver, did you get that? And is there any problem that you're aware of with that?
I did, Madam Chairman. Number 4 is not necessary because it's already in the resolution.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my mistake. Thank you for that. So
Yeah.
items 1, 2, 3, and 5 then.
All right, and Mr. Honeman, you seconded that?
I second that.
All right, at this time, discussion is on that amendment. Is there, now, so if you're in queue for something else, could you show it by hand if you want to speak to that amendment? It appears nobody wants to speak to the amendment. Is there any objection to approval of that amendment? Okay, that amendment is incorporated unanimously. Mr. Flynn, do you have anything else?
That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you for your indulgence, and Mr. Weaver, thank you for your guidance.
All right. And Mr. Traney, you're next.
I'd like the applicant to come forward, if he would, for a second. I've got a few questions for him.
Is the applicant here? Is a representative of the, oh, there they are.
Come on up the microphone, if you would.
If you could start by stating your name for the record, please.
My name is Piet Foudes. You want me to spell the last name?
Please.
F as a Frank, O-U, D as a David, E-A-S.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Traney.
Quick question for you, sir. You see what we've done is to add these conditions upon the license. Now, does the applicant agree to the conditions issued by the Spenard Community Council that we've now crafted into this? Because we do this, you have to agree to all of these, otherwise the license is subject to being pulled.
Yeah, I'll agree with all that.
You can speak for the applicant?
He is.
This is the
You are the applicant? Okay.
I'm the applicant, yeah.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
All right.
For the applicant, Madam Chair, just,
Okay.
I didn't know if anybody else did, that's all.
Mr. Drummond, did you have a question for the applicant?
No.
All right, then, do you mind letting Mr. Starr go now?
Not at all.
Just
Go
so
ahead,
you didn't
Mr.
have to
Starr.
come back up. The conditional use says no sales on Monday, essentially, is that you got hours of operation Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday. So, you know, that's what it speaks to, is that there won't be any sales. Is that right?
You should do that.
Oh, Sunday through Thursday. Okay, I thought it said Sunday and Thursday. Never mind. I got it. Good. All right, never mind.
No problem.
Never mind.
Okay.
Okay.
I have no more questions for the applicant.
All right. Does anybody else have questions for the applicant?
More of a
Mr.
comment,
Honeman?
but good.
Go ahead.
Sir, I'm Chair of the Public Safety Committee. Oftentimes, the colleagues will see licenses and issues when there are problems. So we just ask that you do, Mr. Traney, clear to make sure you do stipulate to these conditions so that we don't have problems for the future. Just be a good neighbor. You've heard already from some of the neighbors that are concerned, so please.
I've been running my business there for 11 years, right next to it. When I went there, it wasn't that great as it is today. I worked very hard to clean the place up myself. I put a camera system to my business. I'm spending, me and my family, my wife, probably 15 hours a day there, and I'll do the same thing. That place will never operate past my hours for my store right next door. I will never have no intoxicated people in there. What I want to do for my customers next door and for anybody that want to make a nice boutique, with some good wines and beers. Definitely, I'll be there, and if there is any problem, I'm going to be the first one to take care of and solve it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Drummond, we don't have any further questions right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drummond, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to point out that I believe Mr. Trombley was referring to the other liquor licenses on page 380. PJ's hasn't been in business for a couple of years, at least a couple of years. And all of these are either bars or restaurants. These are not liquor stores. These don't have the same kind of impact on a community that a package store does. I also will remind this body that we approved a similar boutique license that will be adjacent to Little Italy in the just off Abbott Road and Lake Otis on 88th a couple of months ago. And Mr. Foudeas is a member of the Greek community in this town, as am I, as is PJ Gelopsos of Little Italy. And I will have a conversation with him in his native language if there are any issues. Akous? Ευχαριστώ. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Wheeler.
Madam Chair, I think Ms. Tucker and I would suggest an amendment. I'll let her speak to it.
We can't hear you, sir. Could you speak in your mic?
Sorry, Madam Chair. Assembly Council and I think you may need to make an amendment on number 4, and I'll let her speak to it.
Madam Chair and members of the Assembly, in the First Amendment that Assemblymember Flynn has suggested, with that on number 4, my suggestion would be, so that you don't have a conflict within the document, to add a comma after it says Municipal Code 10.50.015C, comma, and strike the and then after requirements, add another comma, and then...
Hold on a minute. I thought you were talking about the 4 that were incorporated. There is no site.
Okay. I'm sorry, I wasn't clear. There were conditions that were incorporated, and as Mr. Weaver suggested, they're usually included in the resolution. You have a resolution, and it has a number 4. And I'm suggesting minor amendments to number 4 so that you don't have a conflict between the present number 4 and the 4 conditions that Mr. Flynn...
Following you now. Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. I lost you because I wasn't following. What do you want to do?
My suggestion is to make number 4 read as it does now, but you would add and the conditions herein. So it would say on-premise sale of alcoholic beverages will be 7 days a week as permitted per Anchorage Municipal Code 10.50.015C, comma, strike the next word, which is small, A&D, comma, Alaska Alcohol Beverage Control Board requirements, comma, and the conditions herein, period.
Thank you.
Does that work for you?
Anything else, Mr. Wheeler? Okay. Ms. Drummond?
I actually intended to move that.
I'm done.
Wait a minute. Ms. Tucker cannot make an amendment. So Mr. Starr, I believe, has the intent.
Okay, page 372 of our packet, line number 2, after the reference code 1050.015C, comma, strike the little word and, actually, and remove it from the document. Line number 3, insert a comma, and the conditions therein.
All right. Ms. Johnston, are you
Herein.
a second?
Herein, I should say, not therein, herein.
All right. Is everybody clear on the amendment? Is there discussion on the amendment? Is there objection to the amendment? Hearing and seeing no objection, the amendment is incorporated unanimously. Anything else, Mr. Starr? No. All right.
That's all. Thank you.
Ms. Tucker, did you have something else? Okay. All right, I have no one in queue right now. Is there any further discussion on the document as amended?
Just briefly, I'm starting
ahead,
to
Mr.
start the
Starr.
trend that there's two types of occupancy licenses that allow these folks to sell alcohol, and that is the liquor license per se as issued by the ABC, and then the conditional use. And we need to get better at that. And so it could be interpreted a threat is we can come back in and take your conditional use away from you. Even though you have a liquor license from the state and all the other things, we can come in and either take it, amend it, change it, move it around. And so I just had that discussion with my Walmart out in Eagle River. They have a restriction on their conditional use that they can't have sidewalk advertising. We don't want to see girls in bikinis, or we don't want to see Budweiser balloons or anything out there. The community said that. And so that says it right in their conditional use. I give you that as an example, is that this body needs to get a little bit more active if we're having troubled vendors and bring back these conditional uses and change them. It does work. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Drummond.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify that after the amended paragraph 4 on page 2 of the AR, that the conditions herein include, should the conditions include numbers 1, 2, 3, and 5 from the Spenard Community Council resolution?
My understanding is we already did
Okay.
that.
All right, good. Just clarity. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no one else, please vote on the amended document. Is that everybody? And that's approved unanimously. All right. I'm sure I encourage you to start having conversations with your neighbor there on that so you can share if concerns develop further. All right. Thank you. With that, we are moving on to item 14E, AR 67. This is a resolution of the Assembly appropriating $230,000 of
Waive
Merrill
reading.
Field. This is basically, I think I have to read the dollar amount. Let's see, and $127,000 of excess revenues, and $358,200 of Merrill Field operating, for a total of $715,200 for increased depreciation, fuel, repair, and maintenance expense at Merrill Field. Anybody who'd like to speak to this? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Ms. Drummond, do you want to vote? And that's approved unanimously. We're now at 14F, AR 68. It's a resolution appropriating $4,500 from the 2012 operating budget area-wide general fund, public transportation department, and appropriating a grant of $225,000 from State of Alaska Department of Transportation.
Waive reading.
For bus and facility improvements. Anybody want to speak to that? Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, please vote. That passes unanimously. We're now at 14G. This is AR 77. It's a resolution appropriating $48,000 as a contribution from the 2012 operating budget area-wide general fund, and a grant when tendered of $2.4 million for public transportation department for capital assistance. Anybody wants to speak to that, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there discussion? Seeing none, please vote. That is approved unanimously. We're now at 14H, AR 69. Resolution appropriating $835,963 as a contribution from
Waive reading.
Public Works Department. This is basically for major municipal facility upgrades and repairs. Anybody who'd like to speak to that, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Is there discussion? Hearing and seeing none, please vote. And that's approved unanimously. We're now at 14I, AR 70. There's a resolution appropriating $340,000 contribution from Public Works Department Maintenance and Operations.
Waive reading.
This is to establish a capital reserve fund for future roof repairs at the Sullivan Arena, at the Anchorage Museum, and the Lusac Library. Anybody like to speak to this? Please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Starr.
Mr. Vacalis, I thought that we had already established a roof fund for Sullivan Arena. Is that your recollection, or is this the first time? Because I'm wanting to know what this action actually does. Does it put more money into it, or?
What we're doing is putting more money into it,
Okay.
just like all the others
I got
groups
you.
that we're talking about.
All right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else in queue, please vote. And that one is approved unanimously. We are now at 14J. This is AR 72. It's a resolution appropriating $175,600 as a contribution from the area-wide general fund for City Hall capital maintenance improvements and for tenant improvements. If you'd like to speak to that, please come forward. Hearing and seeing no one, public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
Second. Okay, I forgot.
Is there discussion? Seeing no discussion, please vote. And that is approved unanimously. We are now at audience participation. If there's anybody who'd like to speak to us on items not on their agenda, please come forward. Hello, Mr. Powers.
Hello again, Billy Ray Powers, P-O-W-E-R-S. Earlier I spoke on the budget on the school, the way the schools are working, and now I want to speak on the direction that I would like to see. I didn't mean to demonize any of the folks that work at the school district. I know they're trying to do a good job. You know, I have a school teacher living with me. I mean, she works hard. That's not the point. And, you know, I just don't want, and I kind of get the feeling that members of this board think it's hunky-dory, but I don't think it is. You know, I want to see something that's world-class. I mean, we can do more than anybody here. We have the funds. We have the capability to make this a world-class education. I'm not saying it's horrible or anything. It is pretty, you know, it's pretty sorry actually. But we can do some great things. I want to see some bold, you know, hard hitting, and get something going here that's really going to make this place stand out. The Mayor's Summit, I attended that and was happy to be there and happy to see. It's a very slow process. But there's some ideas, like I heard Dick Traney just say something about, I mean, that's interesting. Maybe we can, you know, change up the ownership and make a change on how this works. But let's get a momentum going where we can have the best. I mean, not just mediocre. I don't want mediocrity. I want the best, the finest education system in the whole country. And we can have it right here. But we got to get off of this, you know, it is what it is kind of attitude. We got to get some ideas up. And that's what I'm hoping. You guys, you know, you're playing ball here, man. And I want to see you press this issue a little bit. I want to see some action and roll with this because I'm excited. I want to see a world-class education system here, and we can do it. I have some ideas, and I always talk to people, I listen to a lot of ideas. It's important to me. I've been here for half a century. My kids are going to be here forever. I want it to be where these kids come out of this school system with something that nobody has. Anyway, thank you. And I don't mean to demonize any of our educators. Thank you again.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to us?
Madam Chair, just briefly,
Oh, well,
we have five students left that stayed through the entire meeting. If we could just briefly have them come up and tell us who they are and what school they go into, that'd be great. They waited through the entire.
Is there any objection? You guys, you don't have to do it, but we would like to meet you. So if you'd like to just come up the mic and give us your name and what school you're from, we'd appreciate it.
My name is Logan Ketterling, and I'm a senior at Diamond High School.
My name is Aaron Ernest. I'm a senior at Diamond High School.
I'm Mackenzie, and I'm from Diamond High. I'm Alyssa Frederick, and I'm also from Diamond High School.
I'm Masahu, and I'm from Diamond High School.
We appreciate you coming. We really do.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Starr.
Well, I guess my assembly comments. Mr. Mayor, it's early, actually. When we were doing our dialogues and debates, and I reflect on last meeting, you had made a comment about the urging of the school district to adopt the additional core standards or that. Could you just elaborate a little bit for Mr. Ray Powers, first off, that that's a significant deal that I've learned about, and how will we be involved in sort of that monitoring? I didn't make much of it at the budget talks, but you only briefly spoke 5 seconds on it last go around. I think it's pretty significant.
Well, when I spoke, I congratulated the district for looking to move to the Common Core standards. Right now, Alaska, as a state, is the 5th lowest in setting standards in the entire nation. And so if we wonder why performance does not meet the level of other high-performing states, we set the bar so low that, sometimes people meet the expectations you set, and that's what's happening in Alaska. As we saw at the Education Summit, in at least 3 or 4 categories, Alaska's last in the nation. And then when they compared the Anchorage School District, we didn't fare much better, unfortunately. So adopting the higher standards is a great first step. It was one of the key recommendations out of the Education Summit. And we'll be reconvening in June to put together a true action plan because I share exactly what Mr. Powers said. I want this to be the best school district in the nation and one that rivals the great cities of the world, and we have the resources to do it.
Did the school district embrace that already, or I'm kind of a little bit behind the curve because it's recent, right? Did they just take it on?
Yeah, they just announced it last week or 2 weeks ago.
In terms of the idea or the adoption of it?
Well, there's been discussion, I know, with various administrators over the years, but it really doesn't take much action to do it. I mean, the Common Core is in 45 states. You just adopt it.
Right.
So it's not a multi-year process to adopt the standards. It's just basically you make a decision and say we're going this direction, and then the process starts.
Okay. Thanks for the expansion.
I have a quick question, too. Mr. Mayor, I just saw that there will not be free residential dumping during cleanup week. I just saw that announcement. I was surprised. Was that built? I thought it was built into the budget that we were going to have that.
I don't believe that decision has been made. In fact, I know it hasn't. What the issue is that the state road adjacent to it is going to be closed, and also the road that they usually use for queuing, which goes by the brand new AIH, which is their grand opening during that period of time, is going to be problematic. And so we're trying to figure out how to work around that.
Could you please let us know as soon as possible? I saw at least one newsletter warning people that would not be there, but they would still get the free pass with their tax bill.
Okay. I know that the Chamber of Commerce has been working that issue, and they've been discussing it, their committee, but that decision has not been made.
Okay. Well, just letting you know, the word is confused.
Well, thank you for informing us.
Okay, and the second thing I'd like to announce, with great satisfaction, today is birthday day for Ms. Grunstein and Mr. Trainee, and we wish them the very best. All right, are there any other comments before adjournment? All right, we are adjourned. Jennifer? Leah?